don't negatively self-talk. I'm looking at you, Peyton and Kyler and Jeremy. Don't negatively self-talk. You're a good person. You just made some mistakes. You're a good person. You're very creative. Don't doubt yourself. All right. You can get through those hurdles. So don't doubt yourself. Sorry, I got to talk.
You're
to
like the only
audience.
person I've ever had that's talked to the camera that much. And I'm like, I feel like I've been missing out on doing it.
Yeah, there's going to be people watching because this is a very fun show to be on. Collab or die, everybody. Collab or die. Subscribe, like the video, and make sure that you subscribe to the Instagram, to the YouTube channel, to the Facebook. Do people still use Facebook? People still use Facebook. And make sure that you engage with the content because there's a lot of good information here that you should really take into account. You know, he's bringing people in here for you.
We're always collaborating at all times with the universe.
In this area, it's really easy to get stifled by the lack of supportive creative network around. And it's not like there aren't creative people here. It's that more often than not, these creative people can't coalesce and like get together and find some way to like, I mean, you go to some of the cities that have like art collectives and things like that. You see a lot of really cool shit getting done because they have each other to kind of feed off of.
There's kind of an understanding of everyone getting together to do this thing. Whereas here, we're a little too spread out in terms of our goals, I think.
Right. Well, yeah, it's that and there's no infrastructure.
Yeah.
So it's like if you're a musician, you have to have a place to be able to practice. That's like old hat. That's not like a big deal. That's like the classic garage band story, right? But when you're a filmmaker or you're even like my nephew, nicknamed Bub for privacy reasons, he is really good at 3D animation and rendering, or he's not, I wouldn't say he's really good, but he's getting better and he's young. Like he's like not a teenager yet.
Yeah.
And he just got accepted into a program where he's going to be able to like learn the shit that he's really interested in, which is really, really cool, I think. And so I subscribe to him on YouTube and some of his videos just randomly get like a couple thousand views and they're 3D renders of like Godzilla. He's on Godzilla right now in stop motion.
I love Godzilla.
And did you see Across the Spider-Verse?
Not yet.
Okay.
Not yet.
So when you get the chance to see it, there is a scene in there that was done by a 14-year-old kid.
I have seen that scene.
So
because that has been spoiled as soon as the movie came out.
For everybody. Yeah. So in the kid that got to do that was 14 years old. So he's only a year or two older than my nephew. And I was like, wow, what, like when we speak about representation, it's really easy to jump to like race and ethnicity and things like that. But like when you think about kids seeing that they can pull this stuff off now, because if I'd known that at 11 years old, if I had seen some movie, if Titanic was all done by some 14-year-old kid who had a model and was just really good at working in water, like my mind would have been blown. I'd be like, there's no way I could do that. And my older brother, Brandon, kind of did this to me already with music. Like he was, I remember getting his first CD in the mail. I asked him to send me one and I was like, this is my brother singing and playing guitar. This is his band. And it's not on the radio, but I'm still listening to it on the car stereo. So like that, it shouldn't have blown my mind. Obviously there's small scale like bands and there's like artists all around, but I'd never known any of them that recorded. So like my brother was the first like younger DIY person who recorded a record that sounded good. Like to be clear, I had live show demos from friends that were just like one mic in a room.
Similar story with my brother. He wanted to be a rapper. And then I guess that's how I got into like creativity stuff. Cause he would always ask me, does this sentence make sense? I was the smart one in the family. I was the Poindexter. So anytime they would do something creative, they'd be like, Pablo, does this make sense at all? Is that even a word? I'm like, yes, the word synonymous. Yes, that's a word.
Yeah, that is a word. Yeah. And this is how you spell it, actually. Yeah, I had some weird affinity for spelling whenever I was a kid. I was really, really good at it. I remember my first grade teacher, Mrs. Martin, she would give you a scratch and sniff sticker on your spelling test if you got all 10 of them right. And I was addicted to scratch and sniff stickers. You got to get the
strawberry, man.
Yeah, you got it. Yeah, there was a handful of them that were interesting. Man, we were basically just breathing chemicals. But the reward system in my brain being activated by learning how to spell things, like I didn't like. For a little while, I needed to be told. And then after that, the fascination was already there. So as a kid, I was like, okay, I want to learn this word. and like the I's before E's and all that stuff, like that never bothered me because I was like, I'm just going to memorize what these words are. And then that has served me so well in my entire life. And it started in first grade. So like, there's something to be said for this representation of youth in major motion picture films, and not just on the acting scale, but in the general production talent side of things. Yeah, it's absolutely insane.
And it's funny that you bring up your nephew, because my nephew is the exact same way. He's 7 years old and making stop motion movies with clay and like his little toys. I buy him like those art sketch model
right.
toys.
Yeah. The wireframe ones.
He'll rip it off the wireframe so that he can manipulate it how he wants.
Yeah.
I brought him up here for Arts Fest last year.
Okay.
And on the ride up, it was like a 2-hour ride. He's sitting directly behind me, and all I see is just his little head come around my shoulder, and he's like, Uncle Pablo, who's your favorite director? And I'm like, okay, that's a weird question for a 7-year-old to ask, but you know what? I'll play along. I don't know. Christopher Nolan, maybe.
Right.
And he straight up looks at me and says, you're wrong. It's David Fincher. And I'm like, why are you watching his movies?
Yes. And how is he your favorite? Let's be honest. Right?
What are you understanding from these movies? He's like, I just like the shots. And I'm like, okay, so you can understand composition. That's pretty cool. And then he
likes the terminology, right? He heard somebody say it and he was like, oh yeah, that's somebody asked me that question. This is how, I wonder how other people are going to answer this question.
I just had an issue with him taking a shot at Christopher Nolan for no reason.
He's like, well, you're wrong. Yeah. And then Oppenheimer comes out in 2 days from the time of filming this, right?
Are you doing Barbenheimer or Oppenharby?
I feel like it's gonna have to be Oppenharby.
Yeah,
because
I gotta end on a feel good.
Yeah, I feel like the process for seeing Oppenheimer has got to be you go to the theater sometime early in the afternoon, IMAX obviously, the right IMAX obviously, and then you're gonna need probably a nap, a food, some like post-coital bliss to like soothe your way out of what you're gonna feel walking out of it. I feel like it's one of these movies that I think is gonna be, you know, this is pre it coming out. All I've seen are like the featurettes and things.
Yeah.
But my early onset prediction of it is this might be like Christopher Nolan's magnum opus. Like
That's what everyone's saying, man.
And also not even just for him, but culturally in a time where we're worried about, you know, a potential World War III every 15 minutes. Yeah, right. Yeah. Right on time. There it is. You know, this is going to be a cautionary tale, you know, and like his bomb wasn't even the biggest bomb. Like it was just the first. The Trinity test is like
it was the proceeding of all of that starting. Right.
And he was famously asked like when should we have acknowledged like when we should have pulled back or whatever after I think the Tsar bomb was dropped and that was like that's the biggest explosion ever that we've done. And he was like after the Trinity test, like when we were done with that, we should have started putting stuff in bins and burying it and setting it on fire because you figure like he had to be a part of, he was like kind of the leader of the team of people that have to like create this bomb. And he's the only one, not psycho, but like curious enough to poke the bear basically and figure it out.
And I'm so curious as to how they handle that in the movie and just like the different relationships with everyone involved, including the government. I really want to see how that plays out through a, you know, scripted narrative. Cause even Robert Downey Jr. is like, putting out posts. Oh, this is the best thing I've ever been in my entire life. That's what I'm
saying. And I feel like a lot of those actors feel like that. And that can't be for nothing. Obviously, it's a star-studded cast. Every one of those guys.
I think it's because he approaches all his movies like truly independent. It's like a blockbuster independent style that he goes for.
Yeah.
Similar with A24.
Yep.
They go all hog. And he is just able to bring that blockbuster feel to it that I think Michael Bay has like capitalized on during you know, the 2010s.
Right.
He
all
had
the Transformer movies.
Blockbuster for the summer. Now Christopher Nolan's like blockbuster for the summer, but maybe think a little.
Yeah. Maybe it's a decade.
Yeah. Maybe.
Yeah. I feel like I watched an interview where he was sort of talking about the process of like how why he landed on this and how he started landing on actors and like he didn't write with the intent to have anybody. He wasn't writing for a character. Like he wasn't writing somebody. Like he wasn't writing Cillian Murphy to be the lead.
Right.
You know, he was just writing the character as like true to life as he could kind of figure out a way to mash that narrative in, to then also ending on this like epic explosion. And the thing is like it's one of those things where we all know it's coming.
Yeah.
And you've seen the clips in the movies, and those already look super impressive. So it's like what we're gonna get in theaters is going to be the rest of what we weren't shown. and it's just gonna. I think it's gonna leave a lot of people with their jaws on the floor.
I'm so excited.
And he said like he didn't cast this movie by writing the parts for people he was trying to cast. He wrote the parts, and then he was like, you know, he'd never gotten to work with Cillian Murphy as a lead actor. You know, he was the Scarecrow in the Batman franchise. I don't know what else he's done with him. I think he's done something else with him. But
was he in? No.
Yeah,
he was.
Yeah,
he was,
but still not a lead role, right? So to give him a lead in this and be somebody that he's already comfortable with, and then to like just look at his cheekbones, like he just crushed. Like to know that is him and not actually Oppenheimer. You're still like, there's a case to be made for them cheekbones. Though.
Yeah,
like,
I saw a side by side, and I was like, wow, this is like perfect.
Right, it's like great casting. Yeah, so I'm really excited about it. But I'm also really excited to have you on the podcast, Pablo Lopez. You know, I hesitate to call you like a local filmmaker because your spirit is not that. You are tangentially located here right now.
Right
but
now.
That is like, obviously this is early steps in your journey too. And I think for being in what I think we were both like early in our careers when it comes to like the development of that side of ourselves, you know, you do something really profound, and it's like you actually, you don't just dream, you execute. You can actually put like a team of people around what you do. You understand more of the infrastructure of the pre-production and production side of things that gets you to the post-production side of things. And you're such a great collaborator. Like you're so interested in bringing the best out of everybody in that situation. And that's almost, it's not that it's unheard of in the area, but I can't name anybody else. And maybe that's my short, small circle of people that I know, but I've never seen anything come out of this area that really kind of wowed me or shocked me or like made me feel like, wow, this could be the next LA or anything like that.
I appreciate
you know?
that, man. That means a lot. Because I feel the same about you. Like anytime I see anything from Relic Arts, I'm like, how are they not like charting number one, like at every freaking concert that could possibly be? Because the way that you guys create your music videos, your voices, oh my gosh, the way you play, everything about, and I'm not even into that type of music as like my go-to.
Right.
But anytime your stuff pops up, I'm like, I need to watch this because I know that you put in time. I know that you put in effort, and there's not a lot of people like that in the area that actually see the vision through the whole way.
Yeah. I think that's a big part of it. For me, I didn't really anticipate getting into that side of things. Like when our first music video we did as Relic Arts was Royals. And I remember like I had a couple friends that were helping me out. I think I borrowed a Canon 60D, and somebody had an FS700 that had like the 240 p frame rate mode where it could like burst mode. Yeah. And I was like, okay, so you can't film the whole video like that. You wouldn't want to. The file size would be massive. So I'm like, what would I use that for? I'm like, well, it's got to be something that's going to look cool in slow motion. So I'm like, oh, all right, okay. And then I literally used the shot like right away in the beginning of the music video. And I think that maybe had something to do with it. As I converse with other YouTubers that have like massive followings on YouTube, and I ask them what's in their sauce, you know, you kind of observe different patterns and different thought processes into what has made it work for them. And that's not to say that they're wrong or anybody's wrong. It's like that may be the process that they have, you know, trial and error their way into figuring out is what works for them. And so I feel like ours works for us. It's been very complicated and uphill battle with a steep learning curve on like new equipment and this, that, and the other thing. But I didn't plan to be a video production guy, but thankfully I already loved doing it. Yeah. And I have that attention to detail.
And so you're good at it.
I think so too. I get those notes a lot, and I say that in like the least conceited way possible because I otherwise think that everything I do sucks. Like, everything I look at, I'm like, could have done better, could have done this better, would have done this better. Definitely should have gotten this shot while I was there. I didn't get it, and I definitely should have, and now I'm regretting it.
Well, I mean, not everything can be perfect. I heard something this morning. I can't remember exactly where I heard it from, but it was a quote where it was like, you can be humble to the point where you disappear in a room. So you got to take your laurels, man. You got to take your flowers and your praises.
Where did you hear that from?
I can't even remember. I think it was Tyrese on like a Facebook reel thing or whatever.
Right.
But it hit so hard because I'm someone who, like with my production company, I make sure that everyone knows that if they fail, it lands on the company. And if their film succeeds, it lands on them. And I will always push the creator forward. And sometimes I feel like I'm pushing myself back because I'm humbling myself too much to the point where I'm saying, no, none of this is because of me. It's only because of you. And so when I heard that quote this morning, I was like, damn, that is something I do. I don't give myself enough credit for the work that I put in.
Yeah, because it's hard because you know that complacency is where your dreams go to die if you want to continue to like forge into new territory and try new things and push the envelope for whatever that looks like creatively for you. It doesn't matter what artist you are. If you're pushing the envelope for yourself, it's hard to say, yeah, what I'm doing is really good. I mean, I guess I've never had that, like, I've never been like a confident savant of any kind where I've just been like, yeah, I definitely crushed that.
True.
That's not true. Now and later on in life, I definitely do.
I think I started to now, in the recent couple of years.
Well, it's hard when you feel like you don't have accolades that kind of contribute to the, the wall of accolades that you're trying to collect.
True.
So it's difficult when you think, well, I mean, yeah, I did this or yeah, I've done this, but how big is that? It's like a splash in the pond. Like getting an Emmy, I was like, okay. Getting an Emmy. I want a Grammy so bad that I can't remember. Like I'm at the place of delusional self-thought where I can't remember which one I got.
That's called manifesting. Manifesting.
Yeah, and if I fuck around and find out and get an Oscar, if I go to the Oscar route, then I'm just because I think I hate the EGOT term, I might consider picking up dancing and seeing if I can bring Channing Tatum out of retirement to do one more.
Do it.
Like catch him 10 years down the road doing one like this was supposed to be the last Magic Mike, so I've heard.
Could be your Rocky moment where he's training you.
Right.
That last dance.
Yeah. Or maybe I'm even Drago. Who knows? Maybe I'm like the bad guy. Maybe I'm a bad guy and for whatever reason this gets best dance performance.
Yeah, you don't take off clothes, you put them on.
Right. I'm like a have respect for yourself kind of guy.
I get it. This is a great plot for a movie.
I love doing that with you. We usually just sit down and we'll end up randomly just bantering and coming up with things that could be actually fun to do. Yeah, we put enough time into them. But
I think that's my fatal flaw. It's like I can't go like 5 minutes without being like, that would be a great concept for a movie. I need to write that down. If you look at my notes on my phone, I have like pages.
Yeah, you just scroll through notes.
Yeah, this is a great plot device. This would be a good MacGuffin.
Yeah.
This is a great character name. Like all throughout the days, I'll be like, that's a broken brick. I would love that shot in a movie. Let me take a picture of it.
Right. It's hard as a filmmaker to not see everything as an opportunity to capture something. I was driving with Carlos. Was it yesterday or the day before? He was like, I keep having this, this short story I want to do. And now I'm having dreams about these shots that I want to get. And we were just driving around. He's like, I just can't get these shots out of my head. And I'm like, yeah, that's the bug right there.
Yeah,
you got it. Sorry, bro. Yeah. But yeah, that's a really good quote to not, humble yourself to the point of disappearing in a room. And you have to toe that line, right? Because you also don't want to be this like super arrogant guy either.
Yeah. Which is why I think I back up most of the time.
Right.
Is because I do want to collaborate with a swath of people. I believe that there is no right way to be creative. Even the most novice people are inherently just really creative to the point where they want to be creative. That's how I see it. Like if you are telling yourself, I want to be creative in this field, you're creative enough for me to want to help you.
Right.
Because you are putting it out there into the universe.
Yeah. So I don't know if it was the same day you came over, but I had Matty Fresh is going to be the episode that plays right before yours. Ooh. And he came in and he was like, I'm not a musician. I'm like, bro, you just hit 5 million streams on a song you wrote about a, quarterback at Penn State.
No, he's not a musician.
Like, you're not a musician? Like, what is, like, what?
He's a legend.
You've made up some qualifiers that you're letting yourself tell yourself mean you are not this thing that you very clearly are. Only musicians have songs that stream millions of times and get called musicians because of it. Like,
I love that. That was beautiful.
But it's interesting when you think about it. Like, I think the other reason that you kind of are able to kind of toe the line well is that you're helping. You're going out of your way to help. So it's hard to feel like you're being arrogant, but you realize there's a time and a place for where you're kind of like singing your laurels and like praise it out there. I feel like you're humble enough to realize the difference. And that's why it's not, I mean, in the film community, there are some people that it is grating to be near because everything they do is the next big thing. And I don't know what you got going on, but like.
And honestly, that's funny because to me, those people don't really bother me as much. It's the people who, I mean, they bother me sometimes. I'm not going to lie about that. But there's another subset of people who, and I feel like I used to be one of these people before I actually started moving my feet, who will sit and talk about what they want to do and then bag on everybody else who is doing it, maybe not to the standard that they themselves
they could be doing it and
done.
failing, but like
Right.
they found room to talk shit because they're failing instead of like realizing, hey, you're not doing anything.
Meanwhile,
right
they're
now.
not
Like,
moving at all and staying stagnant. And it's not because of the hater talk that I don't like them. It's the fact that they would rather waste that time complaining about someone who's actually doing something than doing it themselves. And if you ask me to help you, I'll help you move.
Right.
I'll make you move.
Right.
I'll make, because that's the one thing that I always tell anyone that I collaborate with is if you have an idea and you want to see it through and you work with me,
it's going to
will
get there.
done.
Right.
Like,
and you've got the
at
track
end of
record
day,
that shows that.
It will get done. Maybe it won't be $1 million project like you dreamed up in the first inception of it,
Right.
but it'll be a really good project that you could be proud of at the end of it that you can use to get that $1 million project down the line.
Yeah, I think it's hard when you think your vision has to be hit the first time, and it's just like an instrument, man. Like every release you do is just you practicing a song.
Yeah.
You know, so like
Figuring out one piece of it. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's a really interesting point, actually. It really is what it is. Like everything you do, we look at everything like it's going to be this like thing we're going to put out and we're like, I did it. But that's never the feeling. The feeling is like you're on to the next. So I guess in my perspective, I've started to look at it as though you need to just kind of get through it because you're going to find things that are weaknesses and you'll look back and I don't know anybody that looks back on any of their projects and says, yep, that was perfect as is. Like everybody's got the ability to continue to edit or mix or change or alter this thing over time. If you have time to sit there and look at it.
The one quote is you're never done with your film.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. You just have to find a way to make peace with it and drop the damn thing off so you can move on to the next thing. And what's funny is you kind of feel empathy for the people that talk shit and don't get started because it's scary to start because you have to eat crow. You have to know it's going to suck. You have to know it's not going to be exactly what you wanted it to be.
And you got to do it with a smile on your face sometimes.
Yeah.
You know,
got to eat shit and grin.
You have a team, you know, you want to remind them that it was for something.
Yeah.
You don't want to put that face, it's not as good as I thought, so I'm not going to release it.
Right. We've looked at it like the learning potential of every project that you take on is somehow, you know, if it's not what you wanted it to be, that only getting learning potential out of it kind of is like a disservice to the project you did. But the reality is like, you just have to all of it. You don't know everything yet. You don't know all of these hurdles you're going to run into in your first film. You have to go through that process. Trial by fire and trial and error are probably the two best methods for being able to figure out where you want to go and what you want to do to course correct and get to where you're trying to go with your art.
Exactly. And the fact that, I mean, experience requires that learning period. You know, that's how you get the experience, by failing.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're just going to keep doing the same thing and never actually learning from your mistakes. And you're never going to get hired because no one's going to trust that you know what to do.
Right.
But you need to fail. And if you have a good team, Dark Mind Productions, we will make sure that you fail gracefully and that you fail and have a good time, because at the end of the day, you are going to fail at something.
Right.
You know, I try to put out as many projects as I can, and I try to learn one aspect of that film that I can do better for the next film. Okay. So with The Door, I just wanted to do a scene. Okay. The scene where they teleport into the forest. That's it. Because I wanted to learn how to do that effect.
Get through that process.
Literally, that's the only reason I made the film. And it is a 18-minute film just because I wanted to do 5 seconds.
Scene. Yeah.
5 seconds of the film. And through that process, I realized it didn't need to be perfect because everyone was having fun. Yeah. And then at the end of the day, once everyone had fun, they were willing to put more towards it. And it became what it is. And I'm very thankful for everyone that helped out. But you have to learn to fail, because if I didn't fail initially, I wouldn't have tried again to do it properly.
Right. And even if you didn't necessarily fail, because it could be like the type of content you did is just going to flop. Like it's maybe the concept isn't that great. It's still, everything else about it's great. Yeah. Or you don't find your audience, so you feel like it flops. But we kind of see these resurgence of like older films that people could discover when, you know, Netflix or Prime decided to just slap on a new recently added category, and they throw some movie that some, Gen Z kid or millennial hasn't seen or whatever, that's from, a time when they would have been too little to maybe understand it. And I've been having a blast going back and watching movies that I remembered watching as a kid and seeing all these scenes and being like,
getting new context.
That's what that meant. Like, that's really messed up. There's a scene in Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead where the boss, I forget her name, she's telling the lead actress, man, I'm blanking on her too. She was on Married with Children. She was the teen daughter. She's in
Christina Applegate?
Yes.
Yes.
And so she's telling the girl, she said something about like a cucumber, and she was like, oh, I don't have cucumbers. And she was like, what grown woman doesn't have a cucumber at home? And I was like, way over 5-year-old me's head watching that movie, because there's so much other fun stuff to enjoy about it. And it's great that films have the opportunity to kind of be the gift that keeps on giving whenever they're set up under these. Toy Story is like really good at that. I feel like the Pixar movies are really good.
They have a lot of stuff under the rug and over your head, which is crazy.
Yeah, and it's like, that's great. I love that because it allows you the opportunity to rewatch and find something new. It's why I liked Rick and Morty. Like, I love shows that I can watch multiple times through and catch these little nuanced details as they grow. And you don't learn how to bake any of that in until you learn how to do what you're doing, until you learn how to assemble a team of people that understand your vision, and if that's what you're trying to do,
and learn how to talk to them and learn how to collaborate and take suggestions. That was a big thing for me. Just because of criticism and like growing up, and my family was very hard on me since I was like the only responsible person. Taking criticism was very hard for me, and opening myself up to a crew in particular that saw my vision and wanted to make it better, and being able to just be like, oh, wait, he said that my idea didn't work very well, but he did bring another good idea to the table that still works.
That's all I ask. If you got notes, that's fine. If there's something you don't like about something I've come up with, that's fine. Offer an alternative. Don't say, I just don't like that.
That's the thing. Yeah.
That's the worst. It's the worst.
And I think once I established the crew that I constantly work with now, Matt Jacobs, Ted Rosenblum, Rachel Sweeney, Ian Adelson in New York, Floor One Productions, like working with people who have their own perspectives and are able to bring their own creativity to the table has opened me up to be able to receive all that and learn from it. Yeah. Because I only see things from my perspective. Right. And I have a very weird background, which not a lot of people can relate to. And I feel a lot of times like I can't relate to people. That's why Dark Mind Productions, I have a lot of issues in my past. And so I'm starting to thrive on that collaboration and the feedback, and realizing that they're there to help me just as much as I'm there to help them, because they also see the vision that I'm proposing to everyone. Kind of like you. There's
also something about if you are like sort of like a natural leader in some sort of way, and you can you possess the capability to organize a group of people, and you have a vision, people can fall in line really quickly with something they see the vision for, they believe in. And so when you have a team of people that you assemble like that, it's like everybody gets to learn through all the collective mess ups we're going to make, and nobody has to feel like solely responsible for it. Yeah. Do you remember like the first negative review you got, or not review necessarily, but like negative thing that somebody said about a short piece of content that you created, or a short film, or?
There was a project that I did that I didn't really, to be honest, I didn't really put enough time or effort behind it. Now looking at it in hindsight. Right. And the criticism that I got originally was that I didn't really care about film, and that the project itself showed how little I respected the craft. And if you know me at all,
that's not true.
Film is literally the only thing I live and breathe. The reason I make films is because I picture myself when I was younger, learning everything I could from the world, from movies. My family didn't really speak to me that much. Like I said, I was the Poindexter. My brothers were, thugs and gangsters and whatnot, sleeping girls and things like that. So I was the nerd. I was the one that was kind of like pushed to the side, relegated to my room all the time. So film was like literally how I made my friends, and cracking jokes and learning jokes from movies and stuff like that. And so I feel like my path is to leave films for a kid in the distant future who's going to end up like me. You might need those friends that I'm trying to plant in these movies subliminally.
And we're in an age where we digest more content than ever. So it's like you never know who your audience is going to be. And if it doesn't hit right away, that doesn't mean it's not going to be, you know, revitalized later and discovered at a point in time later where it gets all of the, you know, the praise and understanding that maybe you were looking for in the beginning.
You got to fail now. While you have the time, fail now.
It's super important, man. I remember, what was your experience with that?
I took it harshly.
You're like, I did not react well. I burned the school down.
I'm pretty sure I got up and just left. But it took me like a month to realize what he was saying. And then I kind of just, you know, put myself back together again. And that was a professor, you know. And I had another professor say that I'm probably not going to make it anywhere. And I think that's when I really took it to heart and was like, all right, if I want people to take me seriously, I got to do it seriously. And then
there's something to be said for that chip on the shoulder, man.
Something to be said about watch me prove you wrong.
Right, yeah, for sure.
And I mean, I love both of those teachers. Even with them saying that stuff, they helped me out.
Was it an assignment you just didn't really want to do? Was it like not interesting or engaging? Did you have to come up with something you just didn't like?
I think I learned at that point that I was spreading myself a little too thin.
Okay.
In the film department at Penn State, I was at the year that I was there, I was producing about 7 to 9 projects all at once, mostly because nobody else had producers to help produce it. And most of the people wanted to be directors. Like everybody wants to be a director.
Yeah.
So I just took it upon myself to help because that's what I do. And that's a fatal flaw of mine is I just help. So I think
my vice is helping people.
Spreading myself too thin led to the assignments being not the strongest. And then my personal assignments being very weak. And so, I kind of just had to grin and bear it. I left. And then I kind of just had to be real with myself and admit that if all the teachers are saying the same thing, then it's probably me who needs to change something in my routine. And I just took it a little bit more seriously. And now I meet people like you and I get to do cool projects. And I'm trying to take it, you know, 1 to 2 projects at a time.
Right. Yeah. Slow and steady wins the race. That's for sure.
Yeah, my grandma said that before she died in a fire.
Yes, I don't know if it always translates. Man, I remember the first I was super neurotic and scared and nervous about releasing like my first when we kind of stopped doing the band that we did on Vans Warped Tour. We were kind of in this like limbo where it was like, okay, we're going to regroup and do some new music. And I kind of we're going to rebrand ourselves. We're going to do a lot of work to kind of figure out what direction we want to go, because I feel like what we were doing was getting us certain things, but it wasn't setting us up for success long-term. Like it was like short-term gains, nothing long-term building. And it was just a byproduct of, I mean, there were a bunch of things that were a byproduct of, but when we switched over and we decided to like start, I was like, all right, I don't want to do this anymore. I want to do this. If ye want to come with me, please, by all means, come with me. I would love to keep working with you guys. There's nothing against you guys or anything like that. I just need to shift it from, I want to get away from this brand that we've been attached to for like the last 8 years that has like done very little to serve us. I want to kind of, you know, see what we can do if we can try a new method and see what success we see in that endeavor. And so by the time we got to, you know, 2.5 years in, and we're, when we launched so we started in like 2013. We were doing our first full length in the summer of 2015, and we didn't release it for a full year. And I was so nervous what the reviews were going to be and how people were going to digest it. I was really proud of the work, but you never know what somebody's going to say.
Yeah.
And it's not like I really cared, clearly, because I don't even remember when it happened after the record came out, but somebody with like no subscribers on YouTube or no following of any kind, like a terrible like dog shit green screen hanging behind him that he's not even utilizing. So it's just like it's just like a cloth of green screen that's kind of hanging out. It's like there's no production value to this YouTube channel that he started to review music, and he didn't even do a lot of music reviews. We were like one of a handful. So I was like, what is the focus here? Like why did you just pick us? And he goes through it and listens to the record, and he kind of gives a play-by-play of each song and what he thinks of it. And he's just saying the most like, yeah, I mean, it's all right. It's kind of generic. And he's just like, these are things that are connected to like memories and moments and interactions that I've had with people and the culmination of the efforts and, you know, blood, sweat, and tears of several other individuals that were a part of this project. And we hired our buddy Jesse Lawson used to be in a band called Sleeping with Sirens. And after he left the band, I was like, hey, like, I loved a lot of the songs that I know you were the writer on for Sleeping with Sirens. Would you want to come and do some co-writes and kind of co-produce this record with us? And he was like, absolutely. So he came down and it was just a really ambitious effort. And to hear this guy just be like, it's nothing I haven't heard before. You know, like, it's not very catchy or like, and so he had like a few random, like, you know, you get a compliment sandwich.
Yeah.
This is like an insult sandwich.
Oh, God.
So it was like, shit on me, shit on me, shit on me. And then the burger will be that, you know, the guy's voice sounds pretty good. And then it's like, shit on me, shit on me, shit on me. Put the button on the bottom and you're good. And it was the best thing that could have ever happened to me because I finally got to get over the hurdle of having somebody say all of this shit. And then I realized, I'm like, you know what? It wouldn't matter if this dude was in charge of millions of dollars and could change my life like that if he didn't like it. There's going to be people that have that capability that if they find it and they don't like what you're doing, be that tattoos, film, you know, music, anything, they're just not going to bite. And that's their prerogative, their taste, their, you know, curiosities, their interests, their values, whatever it is that ties into whether or not they do or don't digest your work has nothing to do with you. And so it kind of shifted my perspective into this, like, okay, I'm going to have all these thoughts and ideas that I'm going to compile into this big project, whatever it is. Maybe it's a song, maybe it's a music video, maybe it's a documentary, whatever. But then whenever I release it, I'm like, okay, I'm at peace. I'm done. Like, I got to do the work to promote it and stuff like that. And that's easier at that point because you've got everything done. You're just pulling assets from like videos that you've already done. But when you're sitting with it and you're like, oh, how's it going to go over? I don't know. Just get it out. If you just release it, you never know. I had people that message me about lyrics and stuff that they're like, what did you mean by this? And I'm like happy to explain it to them. I'm like, how did you think I meant it? And I love finding out what they took from what I was saying and the wording that I used. And
that's pretty cool.
I'm pretty deliberate with my word choice. Like I try to like branch out into like word families and I love like idioms and all kinds of like, you know, adages and things like that just kind of stick in your brain as like a thing you've heard 100 times and you don't know where. So, and I try to be clever with my like rhyme schemes and just like wordplay and all of it. So to have somebody take it one way and know that I meant it another way is like a blessing because you're like, oh, cool. It meant that what it meant to me. And now it gets to mean something new to you. And I didn't have to go through this whole process of doing something else for it to mean that to you. If I were trying to capture them as like, you know, a potential fan or not, you know, an audience member. And it just kind of goes to show that you just can't, there's so much you do have control of when you're creating it. But the second you are done and you release it, you have succeeded. That is the success. The success is you finished the project and released the project. It doesn't have to be anything else. We kind of like try to attach, you know, not necessarily monetary success, but like rave reviews or like, you know, wide, well-received, you know, commentary on it. And you just don't have any control over that. So it's like, why bother? You just put it out.
Yeah. And I
take the temperature, see where it kind of lays and things and be like, all right, readjust on to the next one. Like I can't be married to this thing if it dies.
Exactly. And that's funny because I've been working on a process with the people that I collaborate in order to kind of move past that point a little quicker. Whereas in the middle of production, I start talking to them about what their next project might be, how they could start developing it now that we're closer to the end of this project.
Right, because everything takes time.
Right, everything takes time. And if you leave too much of a gap between, you know, the thought process, not necessarily the physical doing of the thing, but the thought process of this project is over, I want to do this project. If there's too much of a big gap between there, then you start worrying, oh, is this going to, you know, be received well? Are people going to understand what I'm trying to tell them? So I always try to make sure that the people that I'm collaborating with are thinking about their next movie, because I will send them interview questions and be like, so what's the next movie that we can expect from you as a director? Or what are you writing now? Or like, what can we be excited for the future for you? And that puts them in a mindset of, oh, this isn't the only thing that I have to offer. I have so many other creative endeavors that I know I want to do now that this one's settled. I can let post take care of it, and I'll move on to the next one. And then from there, Dark Mind takes care of marketing, and everyone's happy. Everyone's moving forward. We're doing things, and we're not wasting creative time.
Yeah, it's a great litmus test for being able to see whether or not somebody is truly a part of this creative process, whether or not they've sort of like been indoctrinated by it so that it's like a part of every fiber of their being.
Yeah.
And when you can see somebody who's already got other projects and ideas in mind, you know that this is just a part of who they're always going to be. And if you're a partner with somebody like that, that means those wheels are always going to be turning for everybody.
I got a question for you.
Go for it.
Actually, now that you say that, I got a question for you. Are you someone who will have an idea, an incredible idea that you just have to work on it now? And as you're working on it, another one comes along and you stop this one to make sure that this one is started and then come back to this one when you have more to fill?
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
So I am in this perpetual state of having so many stokes and so many different fires because
Same.
I believe you know you can't pull them out at will whenever you want to.
Exactly.
Sometimes things need to marinate. Sometimes it's an idea. Sometimes people need to sit on this concept before they decide they want to be a part of the team or not. Sometimes this is like, I got to wait for a few things to come in before I can do these things, but I can have this interesting cacophony of like weird, constant revolving doors and cycling through ideas and stuff. And somehow it seems like it makes sense in my head.
I love it. It's my favorite way of working.
And I get stuff done. So like, I can't complain about it. Would I love there to be more organization to it? Sure. But without having that part-time assistant who can like literally run my books and check my schedule and make sure I'm like having a lot of time to work on all of these things specifically when I need to. And I also don't think that I can operate that way. I'm very much so like I need to be in tune with the creative muse that I have in my life.
Feel the energy, feel the music of the world telling you how to move that creative energy. Yeah.
And I constantly jump from like one project to the next. Poor Carlos, man. He wanted an internship and I just gave him I gave him basically a short trip to the slaughterhouse because like we have a project we have to film tomorrow. We were filming stuff this past week. I had to knock out a video on Monday so that it was ready for this event that took place today. Like there's always this nonstop things going on. And, you know, I've got some like this one that we're doing tomorrow isn't a paying gig. It's an exercise. And truthfully, I could almost believe that Carlos and I are like way past the point of wanting to do it because we've got a bunch of other shit on our plates. But it's like, you know what? This is a good creative exercise to see just that, you know, catalytically inclined. Let's just get through the process and see what happens. We're going to hit snags. We don't have everything fine tuned and planned out. This is going to be a run and gun situation, but it's also not a paid gig. So I'm not going to be married to how I feel about the way it turns out creatively at the end of it. I just got to kind of, it's a exercise. It's literally like, you know, a mental health exercise.
I totally understand because I do exercises a lot, especially when I don't have a client. And I know that my team is like yearning to do something. Yeah. So I'll write a script and I'll be like, this weekend we'll have 24 hours. Let's see what we can do. Let's see how we can do this and how we can approach this. This is where we failed in our last couple projects. Let's pick one aspect and then focus on that for this exercise.
That's drilling. That's exactly what that is.
And if it pans out, awesome. We have a short film to throw into festivals. If it doesn't, we have some clips. We can turn them into like real material, or you can use them for your portfolios. But at the end of the day, this is just an exercise, no pressure, but let's do the best that we can.
Yeah. And if you succeed, you've mitigated the problem that you were suffering from before and shown that you know how to fix it. And that may not apply in every situation moving forward, but now that you know there definitely is a way we can fix this, you enough of those, you know, you do that 5 or 6 more times, you're going to be like, oh, okay, there is a way to kind of, you know, get around this thing that was kind of causing us issues on this first project back there. Yeah. Yeah. I feel like that's a really hard pill to swallow. And you're like, we're bored. We want to do something. Like my dopamine fix is I love to hit people up and be like, hey, you want to do a portrait session? I got this new lens. Like, let's go somewhere and go check it out. Let me take a few shots and see how it turns out. They're going to get something they like. It's going to give me something that I can turn around same day and be done with. So I can feel like get that dopamine hit. I accomplished a task, but it's super vital to do stuff like that. Cause I can knock out a photo shoot from start to delivered photos within an hour or two, depending on how many photos are taken, you know, how many locations, how many outfits, whatever. But that, you know, that ambition of being in a position where you're interested in trying something just for the sake of trying it and seeing if you can fine tune areas, troubleshooting areas, problem areas that you have within your production. Like if you're like, hey, we got to figure out what we're doing. Cause like with audio, like whoever's running sound, like we need to find a way to get this better. Is it a mic issue? Is it is it you're not wearing gloves and so I can hear your fingers tapping into the
XLR hitting the boom pole?
Right, exactly. And so if you can figure out a way to kind of give people these exercises to get through them, that's all it takes.
It's like muscle memory, man.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, they're all things that you either haven't done yet or you've done only a limited number of times, and you're not a master if you've done them 5.
Yeah.
Like you're going to have to.
And if there's too much space in between those 5s.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Once it's not like you learn it and then you're good forever. It's like you got to knock the dust off. I'm going to be doing a green screen music video. I haven't shot green screen in a while, so I'm going to have to knock the dust off of how I'm going to key out certain things. But what I don't forget about that is how I set up what I want to film. I'm like, okay, I want a higher shutter speed because I want less motion blur when the hands are moving and instruments, maybe there's spins or whatever. Like I want sharp, jagged edges on all of my imagery so that I have that to basically get a clean key without any of that weird motion blur going on in the background. I want to have a distance shot. I know how I'm going to set this up with like a...
Are you doing the 2 lighting system, lighting the green screen, pulling the actor forward, lighting the actor?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. It's the best way to do it because if you're too close to the green screen, you get the green spill. Running magenta is great, but then you start getting magenta in the hair and you
in
can't
the skin tones. Too,
and in the skin tones. So it's like, it's I think people misunderstand it. Like the magenta side of that is supposed to it's not neutralizing the green. It's just supposed to, it has to be a very, very light fill. It's just there to kind of eliminate some of what that hue is, and that hue itself is only a reflection of light bouncing off of that and going on you. So for anybody listening that doesn't have any fucking clue what we're talking about,
I hope you learned something there because we will not be repeating it, and there will be a test.
Oh, I'm not done.
There will be a test.
Yeah.
There'll be a test.
I feel like once I figured out what it was I didn't like about doing, like you green screen, you're like, okay, I did like I want that normal, shutter speed twice the frame rate. And then you see the motion blur of somebody's hand moving. You're like, cool. It's just like a wash of like this. If they move fast, there's just like a wash of like, it's like a gray that it kind of keys it out to, which does you no good. And if it's too sharp, you don't get any of that fluidity. But for a rock music video, I think that's okay. So I actually have an app that I recommend to everyone. I'm not sponsored by them. If they want to sponsor me, that'd be great.
Sponsor him.
Green Screener. And it literally shows you color bands based off of the degrees of fall off from the light. Nice. And so if you get a really well diffused lighting setup, one side, I do 2 sides. I built these bays that are basically like
so you're coming at it from the side and not the top?
Yeah. Okay. So I hit it from the side and then I unnecessary. And then I diffuse it, and I like several layers of diffusion. It doesn't have to be overly well lit. It just has to be evenly lit. Yeah. And so the green screener app will be like, okay, a good key, you're going to get a good key of this if there's only 1 to 2 bands if there's like 2 bands of color. And you'll see like a gradient. It's like, it harshly separates them so you can see where your lighting setup is maybe failing you. And so once I figured that out, I was like, oh, it's game over. I'm going to green screen it. I'm better than anybody that has ever done it at Penn State in the history of them doing it at Penn State. If you see any of the sports teams where they're turning around and they're like looking at the screen and their stats are all behind them, check out the green hue on the side of their face.
Oh no, you can see some of the what do they call it? The jagged edges.
Yeah, like the flickering. Yeah. Because you're getting like patchy key. It's like. And once I figured it out, I was like, how does not everybody know this? Like we have state-of-the-art facilities here and the space to do it right. We're just not. What is that about?
I just don't think, I graduated from Penn State. I took some classes in the film department. Who would have thought? But like just knowing the education I got, I had maybe like 4 days of green screen training throughout my 4 years of being at the school. So yeah, I don't think they're training anybody on how to use that. I honestly think it's because the students aren't really there to learn visual effects.
Right.
If they had a more dedicated visual effects department, I think
you could find people that would niche into that.
Yeah, because I know if there was a department for that for me, I would have taken that route instead of the producer route. I just fell into the producer route because I'm such a good person and such a helpful person. And, you know, I just love money so much, all that good stuff.
Right.
But if there was a visual effects part of the curriculum, I would have taken it so quick. I love anything that has to do with, you know, just making something fun out of a bunch of different clips.
It's hard when the people that are teaching these classes, you're not supposed to be a professor or a teacher or a TA. You're supposed to be a mentor.
Mm-hmm.
And so the way classes are structured is you'll only learn what they need to teach you to get you. They can't teach you everything. Even in a 4-year degree, you can't learn all there is to learn about filming.
Yeah.
So the reality is it is always going to be a trial by fire thing, which is the best part about YouTube and TikTok popping off and social media content being something that is put, you know, the power of creativity back into the hands of the creators that have zero skill sets. There's a guy I follow that he does it specifically. I think his name is Sean Barrett. He's on TikTok and he does these videos where it's like there's this like metalcore drum beat going on in the background. And he just does this like stupid dance. And he always says some sort of quote he says something that is sort of like some piece of social commentary. So he can make these videos as often as he wants. And the scenery is ridiculous. Like he'll jump off of like this tall building and then like a giant whale will come and like pick him and his buddy up. And then and it's all green screen. It's all terribly done. It's like, but this aesthetic that he has hit, I know a bunch of my friends are so. I should have him on the podcast. If I can get him on,
no, definitely. If he comes on, I want to be part of that because that sounds amazing.
And then I had a friend who does tattoos, Courtney Raimondi, out of New York, and she moved to LA. I think it's LA, and then she started doing tattoos out there. And then I like followed her on TikTok because I follow my friends on TikTok, and then I followed him. I found him randomly. He was just popping up on my For You page, and I was like, this dude's hilarious. He did like a whole bit with like the Insane Clown Posse and how he's a juggalo.
That's hilarious.
And it is so, it's like borderline cringy, but some of it is just straight out. Like he's had me howling some nights. And randomly I saw Two Worlds Collide where she ended up in a TikTok with one of her friends and him and one of his friends. And I was like, oh my God, these people are meeting each other. And these are wildly creative, genuinely talented people that are, you know, getting together and finding some sort of way to coalesce and create art together. And they were not, she's like a brilliant tattoo artist, really bold, does a lot of like anime stuff and she's awesome. Like her work is really amazing. And then his is like this niche commentary TikTok style, but it's all done on green screen. So it's all done in post. It's got like it's not like
he has some production experience.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And so you really appreciate that he chose that aesthetic. And I'm going to have to show you something for him when we get out of here. So
I'll remember. Trust me. I'm starting to love the high ambition, low quality style of content creating. I don't know if you've noticed that through like social media, where someone has an idea that's way too big for their pockets, but they'll actualize it with like the silliest budget kind of friendly experience. I know that they did like a cardboard Avengers type of motif one time, and I thought that was really interesting because instead of saying I can't do this, I don't have the money for it, they were like, no, we can do it, it's just gonna be janky. Right. And they embraced that jankiness, and I love that. That's amazing.
Sometimes the necessity is the mother of invention when it comes to stuff like that, and sometimes it's not even that draws somebody to that niche. Is that they're like, I just like that this looks so terrible, but it's done in such a way. And I find a lot of people, I can value so many different people's art through lenses that I would never enjoy creating art that way, but I can enjoy it. And sometimes you get that like
can enjoy visually seeing it. Yeah.
And you kind of sometimes factor in like, oh, I'd love to do a video like that. And then you're like, oh, I'm actually not passionate about doing videos like that. I just enjoyed seeing that video, and I somehow got my wires crossed into thinking that I would want to jump down this rabbit hole of doing this. But this green screen thing is going to probably flip things. I just saw a TikTok that popped up the other day. This is the all TikTok hour. This band, This Wildlife, did a music video. They did a cover of Blink-182's I Miss You, and they built this diorama style house and shot themselves in a green screen and placed themselves in this place to basically recreate the original set from that music video. And it's all but seamless. Like they did it really, really well. And with, I think one of the gels that they used for one of the hair lights was an iPhone cover with like a gel covering it. It was like an iPhone flash
smart.
with like the gel covering it, shining in through the side like back window to cast a blue hue on the chandelier that was at the top of the diorama.
I guess that would be a good like sun source in comparison to the small model, right?
And it's got to be moody, right?
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
like you just it's
that's
like
that's like really great thinking.
instead of
Honestly.
having some 1,000-watt Fresnel that you had to rent and spend some absurd price on, they just did minis and green screened it. So I already do have an affinity for green screen. I love it when it's done really well. I hate it when it's done terrible. Any local commercial, car dealer, they're the worst. It literally makes me want to claw my fucking eyes out because I'm like, this is just somebody who probably promised somebody they could do this video. I know audibly, like just visually, that somebody got ripped off here because they were told that they could do a green screen music video and that it would be just like you're right there at the car dealership.
Right.
And instead they get this terrible piece of work and they probably paid several $1,000s for it.
Or someone half-assed the job just to get the payday.
Right. Right. Like, I'm going to do this stupid commercial for this pizza shop. I'm done. They're going to pay me whether they like it or not.
Right. I told them 4 days of work. It's 5. I'm done.
Yeah. I mean, there is something to be said also for managing your budget. Right?
Yeah,
Like as a producer, you pay close attention to what it's going to take to see a project across the finish line. And you know that budget has a hard dollar amount, and anything else is beyond that is like either eating into your marketing budget or, you start to see where it becomes important. So there is something to be said for saying like, hey, we got to get this accomplished in this
in X
realm
amount
of
of time.
But I say staff accordingly then. Do I need a team of people to go do most of the videos that I do? No. Would it be easier? Yes. But then I got to rely on them to be at the same caliber I am with these other areas that I feel comfortable just doing it on my own. It's chaotic, but the money all goes to me. And I don't even want all the money for me if I'm getting genuine help on the project. But if I'm not getting project help that feels like commensurate to the amount that I am also, putting into this project, it's really hard for me to find something to, everybody's got a different eye. What you decide to shoot at the same location as me, it's going to be totally different. And that's a great thing. That's nothing to be balking at, but it does lend itself to the argument that, you need to be surrounded by a team of people that share the same vision or at least rowing in the same direction as you.
Yeah. And I feel like like I said, I've started finding those people for my own side of the corner of film. I kind of want to be like, there's a lot of film productions that are literally made by friends, like Adam Sandler and his entire crew. He will make a movie and then take everyone on vacation, essentially, right? Seth Rogen and his whole entire the people from SNL. Yeah, literally, they make movies with their friends because if it fails, then they failed with their friends and they had a good time doing it. But if it succeeds, they all succeed, and that's kind of what I've been trying to do with Dark Mind. That's why I'm trying to get everyone on the same page, essentially. That's kind of the way that I want to just keep approaching stuff.
So walk me through, I haven't really gotten a chance to ask you about it in a way where you can kind of put it in the context for people to check it out. But like, tell me about Dark Mind, like where it came from, what the sort of ambition was going into it versus where you find yourself now. Obviously there's been development just since I've met you. So like to think of where you were doing Dark Mind since before I had met you. So it's not like that started after.
Yeah.
That was a part of you when I met you.
In different ways, in different phases, I guess. Dark Mind Productions is my film production company, obviously. I named it Dark Mind Productions because I have PTSD and borderline personality disorder.
Okay.
And I've been homeless. I've tried to unalive myself. I was in a car accident that did put me out of commission for a couple minutes and they had to resuscitate me. And because of all of those things, you don't have a good perspective on life for a while. And it wasn't until I was 25, 27 that I started trying to take my mental health into consideration. My therapist was very open with the fact that maybe film could be another form of therapy for me. And I really love film. So at that point, I was like, okay, I'm just going to do as much as I can and actually go for it, build a company, try to encourage people to make films in this area, Yeah. We can make films out of these things now.
Yeah.
There was a whole movie made out of it. Not the best movie, but it was a movie.
It was made.
It was a movie, and it was made off of an iPhone. And you know what? You don't need to be in Hollywood to shoot something anymore. And so I figured, why not stay here, the place that kind of rehabilitated me, the place where I found the love of my life. And I've made a lot of great friends here, and I've met a lot of inspiring people. And I kind of just want to build a production studio, production space, production team that can make films independently and have creative control over their IP. So I make sure that everyone knows that if they bring a project to me to be made, it will be their project. You know, they have final say. I may bring into it, you know, my notes as a producer to help you make a more cohesive story, to help you make a more entertaining film. But at the end of the day, I want to tell your story. I want to make sure that your vision gets across. I just want to help you across the bridge while you do that. And then from there, we help maintain all the marketing, all the editing, production, development, everything from the beginning to the end. And I said all of that in reverse. But my main goal is to create the foundation in this area for filmmaking, working with the Tourism Bureau to create a path for the Film Commission in Pennsylvania to recognize this area a little bit more. Right. Build a film production studio in Happy Valley. Yeah. That's my main goal as of right now. I don't think it will, you know, remain that through my development as a filmmaker. I don't want Dark Mind Productions to be the end all be all, but I do want it to be the start of what we could accomplish in this area. Right. And yeah, that's basically my mission. I'm a producer first, writer, director, actor sometimes, you know. I try to remind people that are doing this that it is their passion. They should have fun while they do it. Yeah. As much as you want to, you know, be hard-headed and be hard on yourself, have fun while you do it, because at the end of the day, these are memories that you're going to get once for this project. Yep. You know, and then this might be the only time that you work with this DP. Learn as much as you can. Right. You know, this might be the only time that you get to sit down and rehearse with an actor. You know, try the best that you can. And at the end of the day, I'm going to have your back, and I'm going to make sure that you don't feel constricted by your own creativity, you know? Yeah. And coming from someone who was homeless and had to do it all on their own, and seeing how I could come out of all of that and build what I've built so far and create teams that I've been working with for a while now, it really puts things in perspective, because now I feel like I can impart that onto the people who feel like they can't do it. Yeah, I mean, that's the first thing that people need to learn, is that you need to fall in love with the process. And by the way, the process sucks a lot of the time. It's not that it sucks. It's just that it's not easy. It's going to, if you really care about it, you've got to diligently show up for it and be, you know, that passion is observable. Hence the first review you got on that project in school, right? Like if you're like not really that into it, it does show in the work on the back end. Yeah. And it's so weird that it's this very tangible, but like it's like a tangible intangible. Yeah. Like, why do I know that this is bad, even though I can't put my finger on what I don't like? And I don't know exactly what went into it, but the result, I feel, didn't have anything into it. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so it's very important to learn. Like, you have to learn early on. You're going to be doing a lot of stuff that is not the vision for what you thought you were going to be doing. Like, I didn't think I was going to get into video through doing music, but I consider myself blessed now that I did, because it's given me a different career path and allowed me to still focus on my music and focus on like art in every aspect that I enjoy doing it. Writing, recording, filming, editing. Like, these are creation aspects of me that all are banging on all cylinders pretty much at all times. Whether or not I'm executing is another story. But to teach that to people early is really important, especially when I think it comes to filmmaking, because it is easy to go to burnout, and it's easy to have a bunch of ideas and then, you know, be so humble that you don't speak them in the room, and then they don't get picked up, and then you never work on your projects, and then you end up working 50, 60 hours a week for somebody else doing their projects, and it pays well, but you never bring up your stuff. And, you know, that fail fast, fail forward thing is really, really important. And this area does really have the potential to be sort of like a Nashville in it's like, you know, or, you know, a little Hollywood kind of place. And it doesn't take
that much. Like we've got so many different types of scenery in this area, and it's basically a small city with a very rural feel to it that's only really busy during the semesters when the students are here and on the weekends for football games and, you know, like 8 other weekends throughout the year.
You know, we have great events. But yeah, exactly what you're saying.
But there are lulls in there too. And in those lulls, there's this like weird kind of like ambient peace that kind of sweeps over the town that, I mean, I very vividly remember the first like Monday after I graduated high school, just going downtown and just walking a lap around downtown State College for no reason. I wasn't like gaining anything, like no epiphany came from this or anything, but I did remember that I was up early and I was like, I don't have school anymore. And I took this like reflective walk, just being like, I don't have school anymore. I wasn't going to college. I didn't have any plan at that point. So I just was like, this is it. Now it's life from now on. And I felt so ill prepared to do anything because I was like, oh, I'm supposed to know what college I want to go to. I'm supposed to know what I want to do for the rest of my life. And the reality was I needed to be in so many different other positions to find the thing that I feel like is now finally like my calling.
And that feeling doesn't go away sometimes, you know, because even now I'm like, am I doing the right thing? You know,
Right.
Because now the entertainment industry is like all in upheaval, you know, with the strikes going on, which I support each and every single one of you. You keep striking out there, okay? You strike hard and strike fast. But at the same time, I'm sitting over here like, is this the opportunity that I've been waiting for? Am I supposed to be making like a really strategic move right now? And I start questioning myself. But at the end of the day, I know that this is where I want to construct the new Hollywood that I'm trying to construct.
Well, we're going to have to hit that renaissance because with the advent of like blockchain and AI and a bunch of other things, they've got a lot of things working against them. You're not going to be able to just write something and shoehorn it together, especially if you're not going by SAG-AFTRA, you know? So like the strikes touch on so many different things. So I definitely would love to get into that with you. I feel like it's really easy to see these people that make a lot of money for putting this infrastructure together, like, and then the lowest paid employee is making, you know, that is still vital.
Yeah.
I mean, what is a non-vital job? If you're a job and you work as a part of a production company, everything that everybody's doing there is a part of the thing that makes all of it happen.
Yeah.
Because if one person's not there to do that job, guess what? Somebody else has got to do it. And now their time is pulled from their project to do this thing. And so now there's not this strong attention to detail everywhere. And that shit manifests. Like it just starts to like, it is sort of like a chain reaction. It'll get worse and worse and worse. And we're going to go through the same thing we went through in 2007 when the writer's strike went on. TV is about to suck for the next like 2 or 3 years because they can't get their shit together. And the reality is, I mean, I'm also kind of, this reminds me very much of the pandemic in that all of the people that are in film the Writers Guild has already struck before. And, you know, we got some concessions and it got a little better and blah, blah, blah. And then we ended up right back here again. I feel the same kind of beat happening in the music industry where it's like Spotify. You can have, I posted a TikTok the other day that Snoop Dogg was saying about like, how is it that I can make several million streams and not be making like good money? Like that doesn't make sense to me. And I didn't look at it from that perspective, but from my perspective, I was like, okay, I love Linkin Park. How many times have I spun any one of their CDs or any one of their songs? Give me a number of that. Okay, cool. Now, of the records I bought, how many times could I have streamed to pay them the same amount of money I would have paid for the record? And the record involved distribution, pressing of a CD,
marketing,
different, a different mix and master has to be done for mastering the CD for
because you got to do radio edits and like
all of it.
Yeah.
So if I paid, at one point CDs were $20 a CD or whatever in like the CD stores, kids, if you remember them.
Oh my goodness.
It's absolutely dating myself. 8 tracks were a thing, kids.
just wait until you hear those vinyls.
Yeah. Well, then the vinyl makes this huge comeback, right? But so, how many streams is $20 worth? And that number exists now. We know. And I think it is very impossible for me to have listened to any of the songs that I listened to enough times to pay that artist that amount. So there is a disparity between the amount that we're paying as for a CD versus what we got to stream it,
right,
and what the artists are seeing. Just because somebody created the platform and infrastructure doesn't make it okay to make the artist basically get fractions of a penny per stream. It's like that does not translate. That is unfair. It's and not that fair should be a thing that's being tossed around, but people are making huge salaries, and I get that. But beyond a certain point, it's just you paying yourself more money at the expense of the people that are doing the thing. Now, in the filming community, you see it's like, you know, Scarlett Johansson, whenever Black Widow came out and they did like the streaming release.
They went around the contract.
But her whole contract was based off of how it was going to do in theaters. So like that kind of stuff is already been happening, right? And good on her for having the wherewithal to
good on her for even just speaking out about it.
Right.
Like I would have never ever considered that a possibility. For some reason, that thought had never crossed my mind. And when I found out that they just skirted her box office contract to put it straight to streaming so that they could circumvent that.
And I get it. I don't think it was a lack of judgment. I don't think it was like an error in judgment that they were like, oh, well, it's the pandemic and we got to get it out. It's like, look at what Tom Cruise did. He straight up was like, no, we're not going to release this. Like literally 2 years prior, he waits until like basically when things are finally starting opening up to drop it on Memorial Day weekend. And it just smashes the box office. And it was a video worthy of doing that from the way that they took it from the ground up, from inception and creation of that video or that movie to when it hit theaters. But that concept of like, if I'm on a show and it goes straight, it's a movie or whatever, and it goes out and it does whatever in the box office, but my contract is strongly leaned towards the box office, I'm getting most of my money there. But then when it goes to streaming, you're seeing like pennies on the dollar. It's like, yo, this does not translate.
Somebody's making the residuals.
Yeah, you seen those?
Oh my gosh,
38 cents for like
$3.99 for it was Reservoir Dogs or something like that. Yeah, Reservation Dogs or something.
Reservation Dogs. Yeah. Which is a great. Have you seen?
It's a
that?
Fantastic show.
Season 2 is coming out. I heard. I saw a preview. The guy the Native American on the horse. I died. Like that character.
That was a pretty good impression.
That is easily one of. I don't want to say it's one of Taika Waititi's like best efforts, but for short form like series style work, it's brilliant, and it's something that you would imagine most people would never gravitate towards. But that entire subculture of Native American people living on tribal land and interfacing with like local surrounding municipalities and stuff like that is very much so a thing.
Opened up my eyes for sure, because I never thought about that world at all. I guess I just have too many problems with my own world that I'd never even considered that perspective. Yeah. And I think it's pretty cool. I think it's super cool that I get to see it now.
Well, the problem is the residuals are too low. You can't have your streaming pay be that low. It's literally just a slap in the face. And of course, people are being paid while they're on job to produce the actual the production aspect. Production has to get paid for it. That's great. But if your contract is for points on the record or a percentage of the streaming royalties, you want to see a percentage that's not going to feel like an insult, and all it seems like they want to offer is an insult. So they need to understand that they're making money off of the backs of the people that are doing these things.
Exactly.
I don't care who greenlights what project. The project is sinks or swims based off of the team of people that are surrounded to put that thing together. That is the bottom line. And if they want to keep making that money, they need to understand that you can't just shit on people that are literally propping up your entire industry.
And then right in the next second, start bragging about the profits that you're making while telling them that you're just going to wake them out until they lose their houses and have to crawl back to you. That's some fucked up shit.
Yeah,
Disney.
And then they don't think, and that's Bob Iger, right? Yeah. So like, what they don't realize is there's like a skills gap in the entertainment industry. The people that they're going to push out that are going to be like, you know what, I'm sick of being burned by these studios. Like that is a real thing. These people are like, I'm done, I'm over it. Like people are going to quit. It's going to be like the pandemic. People are going to leave their jobs and they're never going to come back. Cool. Now you're going to get this whole influx of young, hungry creators that have some experience, but there's going to be a lot of stuff lost in the margins between the person who had been doing it for this, this production team or that, whatever.
Yeah. Has that routine, has that structure, has that organization. You're trading it for someone who's more of the novice.
Right.
Who has to now you're going to have to waste money training them.
That's exactly what it is. We stopped and saw another good friend of mine, George Chevelle, that I wanted to have on. Do you know him by chance?
I've heard the name, but I don't think I've met him.
He owns Black Sheep Media.
Okay, yeah, that's how I've heard the name.
So we stopped by. He was selling some C-stands, and I needed some new C-stands, and so I picked them up from him, and actually a big outside light diffuser as well because he tossed it in. He made a deal too good to be true. And so I picked it up, and he was telling us a story about like one of the things he was parlaying to Carlos, and was, I remember when I first got promoted, and I had to I was basically in charge of lighting like this entire warehouse, and I went in and I didn't know how to do that. Like the role I was doing was not something I was comfortable with. So it was a trial by fire scenario. So he's like, I leaned pretty heavily on the grips and the gaffers to be like, what would you recommend? Like, you probably have worked in this building for so long. Those people are gone. Imagine those people are gone now. Now somebody goes in there, he's a young buck, and he's going in like
no one asked.
The negligible quality overall bar of it is going to dip down because of this, like, just it's just greediness. Like, there's no other reason for it. It's like, how many yachts do people have to have before we start being like, look, I'm not saying that you can't have a ridiculous amount of money, but you can't have that ridiculous amount of money at the behest of the people at the bottom that are literally propping up and doing all of the labor and work and creative that gets you that, capability.
And the funny thing is if they gave everyone at the table a plate and then there was still food left over, I'm pretty sure if you were taking care of your people, they wouldn't care that you took the rest of that profit as long as they were taken care of.
Right. If I go to a party, look at it like this. I go to a party and there's like a bunch of people there.
Talk to me.
I feel like balling out. I'm like, hey, we're going to get pizza from this nice place. I'm going all in.
Oof.
This is our movie budget.
Yeah.
I'm going to spend $150 to feed like 10 people.
Good choice.
With pizza.
Yeah.
And I'm like, hey, everybody eat till you're filled. They're done. It's not my house. I'm just going over to the party and everybody's kind of hungry. So I'm like, hey, I'm going to supply them with some food. Like, this sounds good. I want to show them this place that I like, whatever. Pizza comes, everybody eats it. There's a couple boxes left over. I'm going to be like, yo, you guys, I'm going to grab this and go unless you guys want it. No, I don't expect the Hollywood executive to be like, hey, I'll leave money on the table.
I think that's a spot for lawyers to come in.
Right.
Make sure you don't do that to yourself.
Yeah.
But I get your point. Like, I would say that you do own a house. Like, if you own a house, you bought the pizza for everyone. Everyone has gotten the chance to eat. No one wants to take over the leftover pizza.
That is the better analogy.
Yeah.
Me being at a party that I don't live at the place doesn't work as hard, but it kind of is more of the parallel because they show up and they're with this team creating this video. And then when they're done, they're like, hey, I paid for this pizza. I'm going to take the excess that everybody didn't eat. If everybody's full, nobody's going to care. They're going to be like,
exactly.
And what's the weird residual? Hey, you mind if I take a slice for later? I only ate one piece. I wasn't that hungry right now. And you're like, oh, okay. So you took some sort of stipend up front and then to catch your pay on the back end. Like, I get it. There's options. And the problem is you don't want to have to be navigating all of those all the time. But as a general rule of thumb, it's like the scales are tipped and we're getting sick of it. You basically locked everybody indoors for several years during the pandemic. And I don't think we would have the society that we have now if we didn't have Tiger King come out at the right time where we could all universally lock into it. I still have not watched it outside of a few clips. I'm like one of the few.
I've seen the one clip where he's like, my life will never be the same or whatever the hell he says. Yeah. That's the only clip I've seen. But I do agree with you that there was kind of a tipping point where
everybody was making sourdough bread. Everybody, like, these things, the media, the content creators kept basically everything. It's like enough to pacify us to let us get through the turmoil and the trauma that we're going through.
Yeah.
Not even,
distract and entertain.
It's escapism. It takes you away from the things that you're dealing with that you don't want to have to deal with right now. That's great. The problem is now we're looking at it like, okay, well, we've got, all these creators and content creators are going to just basically go away. They're like, I'm not going to. Content creators won't. Filmmakers, people that make these films, those people, we're going to be losing people. And in that skills gap, the things that are going to fall through the cracks are just going to lead us to having way worse stuff to watch. And then imagine, I already am like the most miserable dickhead if I turn on Netflix and I've seen everything that I want to see and there's not something new there that entices me. Yeah. I'm like waiting for Ahsoka on Disney to come out. I'm like yearning to watch Secret Invasion every like Wednesday morning at 3 a.m. so I can watch the next episode and then crying that I got to wait a week. Like,
also the acting in that show.
So good.
I'm super surprised by just how good it is.
It's so good.
But sorry, continue.
And I'm starting to see some threads not that I want to get into the Marvel world, but I can easily go.
Oh my gosh.
That'll be the next podcast that I do is a Marvel podcast. Like great acting in it. And now like Stranger Things is getting pushed back. The next series of Wednesday's getting pushed back. That sucks. That's great. That's I don't know how long we're going to have some of the directors that we have around. Like how long do we have Tim Burton for? How many more Tim Burton movies do we get? apparently we don't get any more Quentin Tarantino films.
I think he has one left, doesn't he?
That's what I hear.
That's his rule.
That's what I hear.
He's got one left.
And good on him for putting a cap on it and being like, that's
humble. That's humbling yourself
and
without
also
disappearing.
And also marketing wise, it literally makes every movie he's ever made a cult classic that there will never be any more made like that. There will be imitators and that'll be a sincere form of flattery, but they won't hit the benchmark and push the envelope the way he does and this, that, and the other thing. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I just have a really hard time with the way we're basically running all of this shit. I want to see some sort of equilibrium where we can kind of get back, because otherwise I'm going to be missing out on a bunch of shows I want to watch. And then, I mean, they don't realize if you don't have shit that I want to watch, guess what I'm not going to do? Subscribe anymore. There goes my $14.99 a month Hulu, contract, so I don't have to watch ads.
Yeah, there goes me disconnecting from my friend's Netflix because I don't like the shows that he watches, and I'm not going to buy my own membership. Are you crazy?
I just recently ran into a friend who has Peacock, and I was like, what? And it's a thing.
Someone has Peacock?
Some people have it. And so...
Carlos, are you hearing this? Are you hearing this?
We basically got away from cable and then branched back into now I got to assemble my packet. I'm spending $150 a month, which is what cable was at before
cable through internet,
people quit doing it. Yeah. So I'm like, this is not, you're gouging your customers and your fan bases, and they're going to get sick of it. They're just going to be like, I'll wait.
Yeah.
They're going to see piracy is going to come back big because people are going to be like, somebody's going to rip it and stream it.
It has come back in a big way. Have you not heard what they're trying to do with background actors right now?
No.
They're trying to pay them for one day of AI capture and then use their likeness in perpetuity forever.
Better be a high ticket price on that.
Paid for one day of work.
Yeah.
And that might not even be a full day of work. It might just be the hours that they work.
Okay, then let me walk you through this practically. Now you've got a bunch of Joe Schmoes that decided to take their $250, $300 day rate or whatever and do this. And every single one of them will be lit and shot on a different lens, on a different lighting setup. They're going to have to make it uniform to be able to get the same lighting set to pack all these people in the same place, unless they're light wrapping each individual person.
Well, I guess they're just considering day players. So just like the people that would be auxiliary. And I mean, I don't know, 8K capture now with some of the motion capture suits. I'm sure.
So what are we looking at? Oh, you're finding new ways to pinch pennies so you can continue to fuck everybody that makes your product, makes your films, is a part of making it happen.
It's like you're downloading a person. You wouldn't download a car.
Right. Yeah. That's a classic commercial. You wouldn't download a car. I'm like, well, first off, if I could, I fucking would.
Do you understand how many times I would?
I have a 3D printer. If there's a way where a file makes its way to my computer and I walk out with a Lamborghini, we're going there. We're trying that.
That's one of the moments where I wish I was Bruce Almighty. Just to are you sure? Gotcha.
It's now possible.
It's now possible.
Anything is possible through faith. You're like, how do I have this Lambo outside all of a sudden? Yeah, it's just such a mixed bag, man. And it sucks that it's happening, Dan. The long-term ramifications of it. This is going to play out over the course of several years. And we're not going to be any better off for it, other than maybe they're going to negotiate and we'll be in a position of, we need the leverage, and the leverage just has to be, we have to press until till it hurts. We can't cave any more than they do. The reality is, okay, cool. I don't want to go work this restaurant job, but I can make comparable money bartending in a restaurant. Yeah. And I'll do it until you guys are broke. And then
the other part of the reality is that they're gonna wait them out. They're the writers, the actors, they are serious about this. Yeah. And they're going to wait, and then they're gonna call a consumer boycott.
Yep.
And then there's just going to be an all-out boycott in general, because the materials that we will be getting at that point
will suck.
Yeah, there will be no substance to it.
Yep.
Because there's no real people behind it. I mean, there's probably going to be scabbers and stuff like that, but
yeah, always.
That's just the way the world works, I guess, at this point.
But you're right, though. I think the option of doing anything else is not really on the table, because the studios are going to sit and they're going to get a few quarters of revenue will still keep coming in while they've got things that are already filmed and in post that are going out. Because you can always hire out to a company to freelance, do the post-production services, and find teams that are doing well. Plus, some of those people won't want to, go on strike. So they're going to be like, okay, well, I need the money and I don't have any others. I'm not bartending. I'm not doing that. Doesn't mean that much to me or whatever. I'd rather just keep doing what I'm doing. And so that's fine, but it's not going to be enough to prop up the entire industry.
No, and and
already look at what Marvel was like. Disney was like, "Yeah, we got to scale back on these Marvel movies," and Disney
and Star Wars,
and it's like, oh, okay, these two big properties you basically promised you were not going to do this with, you're doing it with because you're realizing like, okay, this is actually like,
and their next biggest movie, Deadpool 3, has to stop production now.
Yeah, which as if we haven't waited like 17 years enough. Like, thanks.
Ryan just posted the Wolverine suit, and you're gonna pause production?
Yeah,
this is on you, Disney.
Right. I just don't have any words.
I do appreciate that the actors are at this point, like Mark Ruffalo. He made that video where he was telling actors to take independent film work, you know?
Yeah.
Because that is the landscape.
Oh, yeah.
That's the landscape.
That's where we're going to thrive.
That's where we're going to. And that's why I'm saying, like, is this my opportunity? Is this the opportunity that I've been waiting for? Am I prepared for it? What am I supposed to do right now? Like, I'm at that point where I feel like I should know what to do, but I don't. And I feel like everybody gets to that point in any. We
got to study the history. We got to dig back to the 2007 writers' strike and see who after the writers' strike left famous shows that they were on or famous productions for like, you know, HBO or whatever, and then started doing independent film.
Yeah.
And then I
know Blumhouse and A24, since they're not part of the AMTP or whatever.
Yeah.
I always forget what the acronym is. I know that they're not part of that. That's mostly Paramount and Disney and the other ones. But yeah, I think we might have a renaissance in indie film.
Oh, for sure.
Especially
like Deadpool 3 might get put on hold, but Ryan Reynolds is not going to stop making movies.
Oh, no.
Not with maximum effort and having like his own production team.
He has his own
kind of assemble.
Where he's like, "Oh, you don't think that my films are gonna work? Okay, I'll make them myself and prove you wrong."
Right.
I like his attitude with filmmaking in that regard.
And so that kind of shows it as an opportunity to kind of, it's gonna be the Wild West. Like you can basically rake it in if you've got the infrastructure in place. So yeah, I mean, I would argue that, you're probably in a really good place. Imagine, James Earl Jones is this is like the last writer strike he's going to go through. So he's like, I'll do some indie stuff. And like, I'd like to do like a movie that's reminiscent of The Sandlot or something like that again, or whatever. These actors are going to be out there and they're going to be willing to do things
they're hungry.
They'll be willing to, I'm trying to think who it was. I think Leonardo DiCaprio said he's like, or who was it?
Leonardo DiCaprio will never do a franchise. I know that.
No, it's not that. Somebody was saying they've never made money on a Wes Anderson film. He was like, I always lose money, but I do.
Was that Owen Wilson?
No. Man, I'm blanking. It was another TikTok I saw. Dang. And I love it. Like now I love like the Hollywood Reporter does these actors roundtables that I love.
Yeah, I subscribe.
Yeah, it's great. Like when you're getting like the actor perspective, and then we're also seeing that we take the entire cast of a film and put them in a room and we let them talk about this experience. And we're seeing that a lot right now with Oppenheimer, obviously. But again, that movie's going to stand the test of time. I think that movie is going to be a very culturally shifting.
I think he blows up his daughter in it.
Yeah.
Which I wish I was that kid because that's awesome.
Like, Daddy, don't.
It's just for a scene.
Yeah. But like, they will take films that are going to be based off of idea and concept and vision. And so then it's going to come down to all of the indie teams, Dark Minds, to be able to come together and say, okay, how do we coalesce and get some real rock solid stuff together? Money will still be out there to be poured into film. It's just not going to be getting pulled in through the studios because the studios aren't going to have access to the unions.
Yeah.
So like, there is this kind of opportunity where it could be this nice little waterfall that kind of is refreshing for the indie scene. And I do remember there was sort of like an indie renaissance that took place after that because that was all that was left. I'm trying to think of the movie specifically. I'm thinking of like 100 Days of Summer, I think like came out, shortly after.
Yeah.
And that was another one that
and that was a cult classic too. Everyone loved that movie.
Yeah. Do you see the one with Shia LaBeouf? Mud? No, that's
Mud. There's Butterfly Falcon.
Peanut Butter Falcon. That's what I was thinking. Yeah, I watched that. Very much so an indie film and a great movie and done on what could have been done on a shoestring budget.
Yeah.
Like you could make that film for, I don't know what it was. Carlos, how much was Peanut Butter Falcon made for? What? I think he said $5. I was like, $5 million.
He's on it. I don't know if you know this about this podcast. All right, everybody.
I got a dude in the chair.
He's got a dude in the chair. He's got a dude in his ear. He does this, your whole system goes down. Promise you. I seen it. I seen it with my own 2 eyes. I'm telling you.
But so think about, you're getting ready. So this is a perfect segue. You're getting ready to you want to apply for this grant and do this music video as a means of applying for a grant that could fund you potentially up to $100,000 for the feature for a beach pop funk musical.
Mm-hmm.
And, look, Barbie's coming out, so like there's going to be,
Barbie, let's go party.
There's going to be some opportunities here. And so when I look at it, like that isn't going anywhere. Like that idea side of you is not going to go anywhere. Those people as a macro of the rest of the country are not going anywhere, in the world rather. So as you are trying to assemble like a $300,000 budget,
mm-hmm.
hypothetically, say that's round number.
I think that's where I'm going to stick.
I am used to, I'm sure you are as well, being on the indie producer's budget, which is, things get done, things get paid for, but you're trying to pinch pennies wherever you can, because what you don't burn up in production, you have for marketing then
mm-hmm.
afterwards.
Yeah.
And so when you're doing something in that capacity in the indie world, it's really important to raise as much as you can and do as much damage as you can with as little amount of money as you can. I would rather have a small crew of like a handful of people and then be like, hey, I'm not going to hire a B unit in Texas to take these other shots. We're going to drive down there in a van.
Do it ourselves, right?
Yeah. And so there are ways to kind of like cut corners from the, excess of creating a film and make it a little bit more of like a tight-knit unit. And that's where you see like the A24, like the smaller companies that's their team.
Mm-hmm.
And it may be a good number of people, but I'd rather have, if Dark Minds had 50 people that were just all really great, banging on all cylinders at what they do.
All moving toward the same goal.
Yep. All rowing in the same direction. That team can do more damage with $150,000 budget than you're going to be able to do if you're trying to outsource to everyone.
Yeah.
Now imagine you can work on a film pretty much comfortably and everybody would be like, hey, you're not going to be balling, but you're going to make 30 grand this year to be a part of this film. That's all 50 people right there. You got it.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's a pretty good spot. Or no, that's not true. That math did not add up. That math did not math actually. 150,000 divided by 50 people. Does it add up? What's up, calculator?
See,
and they said I'd never have a calculator.
I'm a creative, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, let me explain to you how not good at math.
I think of pictures, I think of stories, and I
that's $3,000.
never think of numbers.
So say that is $3,000, and you're like, okay, we've got a month to knock this short out.
Yeah.
That's doable. There's a lot of work that can be done. I mean, you stretch it out. It's not like it all gets done in 1 month. Like a lot of pre-production is only certain people are getting paid for that part of it. And only people that are on the production side of things are getting paid for that part of it. Getting talent to jump in on a good idea is never going to be difficult. People are always going to want to be pushing the envelope. I haven't seen all of them, but everything that Tom Holland has done that hasn't been Spider-Man related, I'm still really into it. I'm like, we're lucky to have this dude as an actor, this young, be our Spider-Man, our modern Spider-Man, and also like have him be up in his chops as an actor every step of the way. I'm really excited for the future in that regard. We just got to figure out a way to get like the system of Netflix and all these studios and the movie execs. It works if people are taken care of.
Yeah.
That's not happening. So it's not going to work. And that's got to be the pushback. We just have to be like, we're not going to do that. And instead, let's go the indie route. And let's see a good resurgence in really interesting, creative, non-cookie cutter. I mean, there's only 26 stories you can tell, but like we're really good individually as individual creators at coming up with new and interesting concepts that are going to be able to guide us into more interesting cinema and short series and documentaries and stuff like that.
Oh, and I love playing with all those mediums too. I have a feature for this musical, and then I have a mini series for this horror anthology that I've written out. And that one's called Mr. Bear. It's about just my perspective on the character of death, like the harbinger of death. And then, I have The Door in the Book of Mystics, which is a feature that goes into a mini series, and that's a fantasy adventure. So I try to kind of hit the palette of all the genres that I'm really putting my hands in. And then with the projects that we bring into the company, Like Rachel Sweeney did a film about a woman who's going through. It's in festivals right now, so I'm not trying to give too much away, but it's a very strong tale on a woman's autonomy and, you know, Roe v. Wade and how that plays out in a woman's own self. And I love hearing perspectives that I will never have because I'm a guy, you know?
Right.
And I can't see the world the way that she does. And she's super creative and such a good writer. I'm like honored. I'm so honored to know you, Rachel. Thank you. And it's like pulling ideas from everywhere to create a cohesive story. That's what I love the most. I don't know why.
Well, you have like the ability to do that when you have a team of people that are all passionate about doing the same things that you like, doing the things that you guys are doing. And that, I mean, that, like I said, that's going to turn this into the Wild West for you guys. If there's grant money and film funding money out there that is, you're eligible for, you know, you're going to have a track record of things that are already proven, which gives you the leg up over the people that are like, oh, I decided to start doing indie film for the first time. Like you're gonna be like, no, but look, here's proof of concept. Like we get from here to here. Yeah. You don't have to like this to see that it got done. And I
should show you the proof of concept that we just finished in New York for the feature that we're trying to bring into Happy Valley. It's a coming of age story. A young man starts to realize his father might not be on the right side of history. It's very contained. The proof of concept is a scene we call the Last Supper because it's the moment where the son definitely knows the father is into some shit and the father definitely knows that the son is figuring it out.
Right.
And so it's a very dramatic scene that I think kind of leads into the bigger story a little bit more palatable for general audiences.
Right.
And
this one's the one that gets you hooked.
Dude, I think the New York team that we've been working with is phenomenal. Incredible. We actually had a DP from Germany who's originally from Happy Valley come back to shoot it. And then he came into Happy Valley to shoot trailer footage for it. So being able to kind of facilitate all that and being able to guide that production team into what can make the film or the proof of concept feel more filmic, being able to know that I can impart that to them, super cool. Super cool. And I'm enjoying all of it. I need you to see it because it is beautiful. The acting is great. I think they did a fantastic job with casting. And my part was mostly producing it and stuff like that and giving guidance. But yeah, I think you're hitting it on the head with we're moving in the right direction.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's not like people are going to want to stop making films.
Yeah.
And people are going to want to stop making music just because, Spotify and Apple Music and all these streaming sites don't pay them well. It's like that's just our necessary evil, and they've got the platform that's big right now, but there's always a bigger fish, you know?
Yeah. And at the end of the day, just make, because you don't know what audience it's going to capture. You don't know what is going to be your next big break or the thing that does get you noticed. But right now, support the strikes. Yeah,
definitely support the strikes. I think there's something to be said for the fact that like you just said something and I lost it. Oh, this is killing me. You just said something right before you said support the strikes.
You never know what is going to be your big break.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing is the thing that gets the most discouraging is when you don't hit certain benchmarks that you kind of arbitrarily set up for yourself. And so the only way to get to your goals is just to not quit. It doesn't matter what it is. Like your answer, if you quit, you definitely don't get to succeed at the thing you want to do. But if you keep trying, there's a good possibility you could. There's what's the Fight Club quote? On a long enough time scale, the survival rate for everything drops to 0. And so that makes you think like that's very nihilistic, right? Very Chuck Palahniuk.
Yeah.
But that also applies to your obstacles. So can you outlast your obstacle? If people could frame it in a way where they look at it like, hey, yeah, this sucks. This is not where I want to be. This is this. But I can wade this out. I can, put my nose down, eyes forward, and just go through the dirt and do what I have to do. Eat crow, bear shit and grin it. Like, you just gotta you've got to keep going to be able to see it to the other side.
And the funny thing about that is that sometimes, like me, I am making proof of concepts for stuff that I know I want to do in the future.
Right.
I know that I am not at a skill level right now for Mr. Bear, for like how I want it to be.
Right.
But I've made proof of concepts that I can at least showcase my intention, you know? And maybe 5 years down the line, someone sees that and says, hey, this is a great idea. We should help you make that a full reality. And that's kind of how I feel people should approach their projects.
Yeah. Well, if you have it in the can, you have it to be able to pass along when you're ready. When that opportunity does arise, you have this thing ready to kind of showcase and say, hey, I understand this is proof of concept, but
preparation. It's all about preparation, right?
Yeah.
Making sure that you have it in your back pocket. Because some people are too close with their creations. You know, they don't want to share it. They don't want to.
You have to kill your babies.
They don't want to let anyone know about it because of the fear that someone's going to, you know, take it and do something with it. And I understand that. I totally understand it. Copyright everything that you can.
IP does get stolen. Like that stuff happens.
Trademark what you can and do it. But never hinder yourself in your journey. Keep climbing your ladder. And if you don't want to tell the whole story, pick a moment from that story just to showcase your idea, because if it's in your brain, no one's ever going to see it.
Right.
But if you make it tangible, even if it's horrendous, you'll have something to build off of, to build that pitch off of.
Yeah,
You know?
you have to be willing to lay down the foundation regardless of what that looks like. And I think it's just the creative space is really difficult, specifically because the people that I find that are this is not the fact of why, but because I think because a lot of people are, you know, a lot of the creative people that I know have some sort of emotional turmoil. You know, all great comedy comes from some form of tragedy.
Right.
Everything's funny until it happens to you.
Yeah.
Like that kind of stuff is out there. But the reality is like you have to muscle through that. Like it's hard because everybody's got their own obstacles and everybody's going through something that nobody has any clue about. And so you can't like, you know, blanket statement, be like, just pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Sometimes there's going to be extenuating circumstances, but like to the degree that you can think about, you know, free will and determinism, and which it's like we've separated these ideas because we wanted to see which one we could say is the absolute, which one's right. But that to me seems like somebody who took a whole argument that was like a whole unit of something, which was this concept of a mishmash, like self, you know, determinism and free will, like, and pulled it apart so they could have an arguing point. But that doesn't mean that these things are intrinsically separate. You know, the idea that it has to be one or the other is binary, and it doesn't have to exist like that. And in all reality, I think most people could look at their lives and say, yeah, I see a little bit of both. I can see where I had a better choice I could have made here. And I can also see why I didn't make that good choice, maybe necessarily because of the upbringing I went through and just, you know, whatever the synapses in my brain decided to fire that time.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's like a split hair decision. People make mistakes all the time that change the entire trajectory of their lives. I'm just as guilty of doing that. And so it's hard to look at it like you have to have, it has to be one thing or the other. It's like, no, it's kind of all of them. So be a part of that ecosystem, you know?
Yeah. Live in it and don't allow life to just happen to you. Be a participant in it, you know?
Yeah.
You know, make the choice and then go forward and voice when you need help. That is one thing I learned as a creative. I needed to voice when I needed help. You know, I was burning myself out and I never spoke about it to my friends. I never told my crew, and you should. You know, more people are willing to help you out that way.
And also, like, it takes a village. Like, it's not like you could have pulled any one of those projects all together by yourself when they're that intense. There's that much, you know, there's lighting, there's sound, there's all these kind of, you know, variables that are taking place. You need to be able to have a team around you. Yeah. And if you're getting overwhelmed, you're not going to be able to serve the people that you're trying to, you know, lead in the direction that they all want to go, and including yourself. It's just such a, you know, I feel like creatives don't get a fair shake at a lot of things, and especially pay. But the reason for that is because it's so difficult for people that aren't the creators to really fully appreciate all of the work that goes into the creative side. We love to enjoy the video game. We don't love to make sure the video game developers are getting paid an arm and a leg, unless they're with like a particular franchise doing really well. Yeah, or getting sleep. Like turnaround times sometimes can be really, really chaotic, especially with like the concept of downloadable content coming out. You got people that are like, oh, that's doing a week. Like we're literally like halfway through this. It's going to take like 2 weeks. And they're like, well, you got to have it done in 1 week.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, I guess I'm not sleeping for the next couple of days. And, it's just, we've got to find a way to kind of get to the point where we can coalesce and appreciate the creative person and the act of creating their art and what the art is of itself. It's hard because not all art is for everybody. Everybody's writing art that's, it's got a niche, it's got an audience. Everybody's and it should find its audience.
Mm-hmm.
But there's something to be said for the person whose art, doesn't, for whatever reason. Maybe they're not good at marketing. How many great songs do we not know because they're terrible at being like the business side of being a musician? Every day. Yeah. But how many short films do we not hear about because they're terrible at marketing, or they have an idea and maybe they executed it really well, but
they didn't save the money for marketing.
Yeah, there's no outreach, there's no ability to, there's no sort of like PR campaign, there's no word of mouth spreading because it's only localized in one community where they took, it took place and it was filmed.
Mm-hmm.
And we accept that art in all forms moves us, music, film, all of it. So we need to get to a point where we realize, like, look, like, this is just as necessary a facet of society as like the corporate CEO and the guy who takes out the trash. Like, they're all in this ecosystem together doing something that is contributing towards the commonality of the greater good of what this creation should be as it goes forward. And we just are not there yet. And the strikes are obviously indicative of that. I hope they don't last that long, but I just have a feeling we're going to be suffering through this one for a while.
I can already see the Teamsters starting.
But you know what? That's also
too.
The silver lining here is also that in the event that these strikes go on for a while and content starts to suck, I'm going to stop watching as much television and I'm going to get back to creating. I'm going to start wanting to see the things that I want to. I'm going to do the things that I want to do, and I'm going to create the things that I want to create that I'm not seeing elsewhere. And again, sometimes that necessity is the mother of invention. It's not out there. So I'm like, hey, it's been a while since I've seen that thing where this has been the premise. And I really kind of like this little spin I've got on it. I'd like to kind of play around with that a little bit.
Like I said, make the content that you enjoy as well. Like, I'm trying to make movies for kids 2 or 3 generations down the line, but it's also movies that I like grew up watching and things that I want to emulate, like Indiana Jones. That's what The Door was, but with magic, Right. And Black Mirror, that's Mr. Bear, but it has a story about death and what that can do to the human psyche instead of technology. I agree with what you just said. Is what I'm trying to say.
Statistically, horror franchises and horror films are the cheapest to produce.
Mm-hmm.
Like they don't require anywhere near as much. I did love seeing that Christopher Nolan said, one of the reasons why I didn't want to use CGI is that it really takes you out of the environment. Like, you can build up this, how scary something is, like a nuclear bomb. And like at the end of The Dark Knight, you see Batman go off in the distance and then there's this nuclear bomb, but you're relieved because you see it. And it means that all the people aren't blown up. So it's really a happy ending, and Bruce Wayne survives. Spoiler alert. And what?
Bruce Wayne is Batman?
Yeah. So the fact that you can see the context between like how scary, how non-scary that nuclear bomb was, and when it was outside of the city limits, nobody died. And we had that moment of relief after the nuclear bomb goes off. And then you see something like Oppenheimer. I was like, yeah, here's the first one. And so
not a lot of people are going to enjoy this one.
And so, but I love that he's going to set out to do, I think he does a really good job of kind of making people uneasy and come to terms with questioning a lot of the things that we kind of accept as the status quo. Like we like news outlets, regardless of what side of the spectrum you're left, right, Fox News, MSNBC, CNN, whatever, we like lot and throw out this idea of World War III. Like, it's not going to be a nuclear war. And then we look at it like, oh yeah, like, oh, they've got the nukes and they've got the nukes. It's like, what are we doing? Nobody wins this. You understand that? And like, we're literally one small step away from some crazy dictator getting cancer and being on the way out and being like, you know what, if I'm out, what do I care?
Yeah.
And then, okay, what happens then? And on the flip side, you see them go into these like, nuclear bunkers, and you see that like most of the facilities are basically inoperable and they don't have electricity, and like this patch panel is broken. So literally anybody can just walk in there and be exposed to
radiation
whatever.
Like,
we just have, it's like every time we get to the point where we do something really amazing, like some real amazing feat of science or art or culture
Humanity.
or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like the next thing we do is see this like bastardized Wish version of it pop up that has like no scope of the morality of the original context.
Well,
in which something
equal
was
and
built.
opposite reactions, man.
Yeah,
Equal and
yeah,
opposite
fair enough.
reactions.
All right, so I should be happy that physics is still functioning the way it's supposed to.
Yeah. There will be a test on this later.
Right. I usually like. It amazes me to hear that you have like that you had, PTSD or have PTSD and that you're recovering from that, because I think, I met you in a place where you were like career focused minded and really into diving into your art and into your craft. And I suppose it's really easy to mask that anything else is underneath there when you're kind of feeling the effects of catharsis of going through the creative process, doing production and creating things. There is something that just like that does lift the human spirit. Like you create something, there's nothing. And then all of a sudden we create something. I'm still the same goo of matter that I am right here.
Yeah.
But now there's something else that's here because I did something.
Yeah.
And
a lot of why I do what I do is trying to find reason for the things that happened to me when I was younger, and wanting to know that throughout all of that, I am still here for a reason. I mean, at 16, I was dead for a collective of like 5 minutes, and being brought back for a good 5-7 years after that, I felt immense survivor's guilt and didn't really understand why I was still around, because I just felt like after that, I was homeless. I was beat up. The university, there was an issue with the university where a lot of my funds were taken, and that's how I became homeless for about 1.5 years. And then it's hard to talk about because I don't want to be someone who relies on his traumas to kind of gain sympathy for the projects that I'm trying to do. I just want it to explain why I do what I do.
Yeah, and also, I mean, that's a platform.
Yeah.
Like this is like people need to hear this. I just went to a funeral.
Yeah, I'm trying to talk about it more because I'm starting to realize people do want to hear how, your life can shift over time. And it's not just that first initial part. It is a tapestry of everything.
Yeah.
And walking through that path, you have to realize that you can get out of it. There might be some dark times, there might be some lows, but equal and opposite reactions. There's going to be great highs. And I feel like I survived all of that, and now I get to ride my high. I get to make films. I get to have people like you who I respect like so much. You have no idea
so obnoxious.
how I like
so
look.
Obnoxious.
I look up to you like you are you are one of those people, and you don't even consider yourself a film person. I consider you a film person,
Yeah, I am by like the fact that I end up filming things and editing things,
but like proxy. But I feel like you would consider yourself a musician first.
Yeah, I would love to be considered a musician first because that's what got me into it, and that's where like my real affinity for everything is. But the reality is, I think I lost this need to feel like I was identifying as one or the other, and the really is I'm just a creative, and like I enjoy that with that stokes in the fire method that we were talking about earlier. You can kind of have stokes in all of those fires, and it keeps life interesting. It keeps it from being boring. Keeps me from getting like destitute or feeling like I'm complacent because I can never be content with where I'm at because I've got shit to do. I've always gotten to the next thing to do, and that can lead to burnout if you don't monitor it correctly. But at the end of the day, like I just went to a funeral yesterday for a buddy of mine that passed away. He committed suicide, and I did a music video. It was for a song "Volatile," and I had already filmed it one day. It was like a 2-day shoot. And then I just couldn't quite find a way to bring the narrative of the video together. And so we sat on it for like 3 or 4 years. Like we just sat on it. Like the song was out. There was no reason to sit on it for that long. But I couldn't come up with the way to like creatively wrap it up in a way that satisfied me. So I just didn't put it out. And then I ended up deciding like maybe I need to shoot some more footage. Maybe I can tie in like another story with another like this duality, this mirror world type character. And so I filmed with my friend who passed away, his daughter, and I ended up not using her footage at all. But I spent the day with him and his daughter in this, you know, old 1914 built school in Shenandoah, Pennsylvania. Mm-hmm. It's called the J.W. Cooper Center. It's a really beautiful internal building.
Been there. Yeah, I've been there. Yeah.
And so Ken Steinmeitz is actually the guy who runs and owns that building. He's on like the board of engineers at Penn State.
Oh, wow.
And that's like one of his big refurbished projects to give back to the community. And so I hit him up every time. I'm like, hey, can I use this space for this video or this or whatever? Yeah. I think we're going to use it for Spitfire for some like the intro credit, like B-roll stuff. But like, you know, he was somebody who was battling with like demons for a while. And, you know, you get to a point where it's like, I used to get mad when my friends had a friend who killed himself. I'd be like, man, fuck you for this. Like now I got to deal with this because things were difficult for you. And like but the reality is like, they do kind of feel like it's a cup of water that trauma that's just building up. And then when it overflows, it just overflows. It's not like that's
a great metaphor.
You know, it's not like it's one time it's not like one act is what pushes somebody over. It can't be. Mm-hmm. It has to be this like culmination of all of these things building up and bubbling over. And, you know, in light of that, I think it's really important that people realize that if you're a creative and it's getting difficult for you to feel like you're like, why am I doing this? Should I still be doing this? If you're doing it and it's still, your passion is still sparked in it, it may just be your environment. You may just not be in the right place. You got to try to find ways to pivot, and you just got to keep going. There's no way for it to get better unless you keep going. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, that does mean there's going to be some shit valleys. There's going to be real lows that are going to hold you down, and they're going to bury you there. Yeah. They're going to hold you down like they're drowning puppies, one in each hand. Just like, oh, you got this dream? This is what I think of your dream of playing professional soccer. Oh, you wanted to be a movie star, huh? Why don't you just take that and we'll hold it down there? Yeah. Wait till it stops squirming.
And you got to be strong enough to move through your own emotional roadblocks, Yeah,
I said this to a friend yesterday that we look at mental health, like we put a moniker on it, and all of a sudden we've said mental health. We've identified it. So now we just got to fix the mental health, and then we'll be all right. But it's like, listen to how dumb does that sound? It's like there's this myriad number of problems and variables that go into what determines mental health, but the term mental health should imply this concept of mental exercise, and we don't get taught that almost anywhere.
No, I'm just learning that now.
That's why we're looking at like TikTok clips and motivational videos on YouTube and stuff like that, because we're looking for that inspiration. Like we are a generation of people that we're not given much. And so we're looking for deeper meaning in literally everything because we yearn for it. We could not be a more hungry society for deeper meaning in our own lives and in the lives of the people around us, so that we can feel some sort of like, profound capability to connect at one another in a way that will mean something in a lasting way. No, the reality is entropy and heat death says the universe probably dies in how many billion years do we got? Trillion maybe. Yeah. But like,
mark your calendar.
While I'm here, rage against the dying of the light. Like that light is going to shut out for everyone. So it's not like it's a perspective thing. And if you need to get some mental exercises of, hey, I'm starting to have these negative thoughts, therapy, man, it's so huge. Yep. I can't even describe the number of people that I've told that I go to therapy for this or for that. And I had 2 therapists at one point, one that I went to talk to about work shit, and one that I went to talk to about like my growing up shit. Yeah. And I was better for it because I was able to process and compartmentalize as it's coming out. And I don't know why it got like, we kind of made people that went to therapy feel crazy. And it's like, everything's crazy in a world where nothing feels it's right or sane. Like you put anybody in a glass box is shrinking, they're going to start to freak out.
Exactly.
And it's like, that's how they feel. The world is closing in on you and you don't have any way out. And the thing that you love isn't going to give you the, escape from it.
And it's so good to talk about it too. Cause as soon as I started realizing that the more I spoke about the thoughts that I have in my head, like all those doubts and things like that, as soon as I start saying them out loud and saying that I am afraid of that stuff and actually just being real with myself about it, I feel so much better. And I would have never learned that process if I didn't go to therapy, if I didn't try to at least alleviate some of the pressure that I'm putting on myself, in terms of like what I want for my career, or is my personal life, good societally and stuff like that. So I do encourage therapy, and I'm happy that you also go to therapy too.
Yeah. I mean, like, and it takes a while. Like, not all two therapists are the same. You got to find the right one. It's going to take some shopping around.
Yeah. Feel free to tell them, hey, this isn't working out. I'm going to try somebody else. I've done that. I've had maybe 5 therapists in the last year and a half, maybe.
Right.
And I just found one that really works with me.
If you can imagine, I don't function well with a very clinical psychiatrist or psychologist. Like, I can't benefit in that regard. Like, I don't, the math, the X's and the O's, the paragraphs of what you're going to categorize me in, that's not going to help me. I need somebody to give me protocols. I need somebody that I can give them information and they can see from the outside to give me a protocol that says, hey, okay, when you're starting to feel like that, I want you to think about this. And it sounds so stupid to hear it in that context. But then whenever you're put in that position and you're like, what did he say? Oh yeah, think about this. And then it's not like you're distracting yourself from the way you're feeling. You're showing yourself that the way you're feeling is temporary. This is, you're going to feel shit. Like, it's going to come and it's going to go, and there's going to be ups, downs, happy, sads. Like, you got to go through all of them.
Yep. And you got to give yourself like an avenue to learn how to maneuver that emotional, whatever it is, the emotional turmoil or the triggering that you might be feeling. You have to learn how to have a process in your own brain on how to not react to it in the ways that you might have already. Because I was a very loud person. I'm very, when I get emotionally charged, and that's because
me too.
That's because
I get people telling me shut up all the time.
I grew up in a house. Yeah, I grew up in a house with 3 other men and 1 woman, my mom, and all of them were loud because we're all Puerto Rican. No offense to the rest of my brethren out there, but literally, you have to like sometimes scream to be heard sometimes. And because of that, I grew up with a reaction where if I felt as though I was not being heard, my reaction was increase your volume. Make sure that they hear you.
They must not hear me. I must get louder, and then they will hear me. I get that. I'll solve this problem.
I connected that with my emotion for anger, and that's a bad combination.
Yeah.
Because I don't want anyone to ever fear me. I want them to understand me. That's all I want, is people to understand.
It's a communication issue, and it's the one that is solvable.
Yeah.
And it's
you just need to learn the routines or the process, or come together with a therapist or your support system and come up with a plan for how to engage that emotion, or how to take yourself away from the situation. I always say it's like an equation. If you feel as though the equation isn't giving you the correct answer, take yourself out of it and maybe put in a different variable if you have to, or just keep yourself out of the equation altogether.
Yeah, like I don't like the concept that you have this, we give it like, oh, this person has a toxic trait.
Yeah.
Really, that is just a pattern, and it's a learned pattern. That's how it gets there. We're nothing but patterns. We're basically programs running on loop. So to break that, you're going to need to learn a new pattern. And if we could start looking at it like that, and not looking at like, oh man, I'm just broken. Like, no, you just got a pattern. You got a knot in your system. You just got to untie that knot and then tie it the right way.
And don't negatively self-talk. I'm looking at you, Peyton, and Kyler, and Jeremy. Don't negatively self-talk. You're a good person. You just made some mistakes. You're a good person. You're very creative. Don't doubt yourself. All right. You can get through those hurdles. So don't doubt yourself. Sorry, I got to talk.
You're like the only person I've ever had that's talked to the camera that much, and I'm like, I feel like I've been missing out on doing it.
Yeah, there's gonna be people watching because this is a very fun show to be on. Collab or die, everybody. Collab or die. Subscribe, like the video, and make sure that you subscribe to the Instagram, to the YouTube channel, to the Facebook. Do people still use Facebook? People still use Facebook, and make sure that you engage with the content, because there's a lot of good information here that you should really take into account. He's bringing people in here for you.
Yeah, I'm so glad that like I both do and don't give a shit all together. I'm like, I just need to get these are conversations that I would have anyway. And I feel like this is like a case in point scenario. Like people might meet you on the street and be like, oh, that's Pablo. He's the filmmaker, super bubbly, one of the nicest guys I've ever met. Like you would never think that person has shit that they're dealing with.
Yeah.
And the reality is we all do.
Yeah.
And if you can just accept that we're all doing this shit together, none of us have the answer. We're just trying to figure out how to rewrite our book as we go along to get the outcome that we want at the end of the,
We're all just trying to survive and go through each day with minimal negative contact. Right.
Right. I'm not trying to, I don't want to, if I can't get through this, my day without like, causing some sort of, I don't want to go through life or my day and hurt people. I don't, that is not like my intention. Obviously like selfish decisions get made and this, and the other thing, like you're capable of.
You're still human.
Yeah. You're capable of fucking that up, but we look at it like we have to be absolute because we get tied to this. No, you should sit in the shame. Super important. Kind of like this curbing mechanism to get you back on track.
Yeah.
If you're feeling a little bit ashamed about something you did, maybe sit in that for a little bit because it sounds like you're doing something that even you don't want to be doing.
That's your brain giving you kind of a hint there.
Right. And so it's like, but you can't be married to it. It can't be your personality. Your personality can't be, you're not, Pablo Lopez, I have PTSD. You're like, it's just a part of me. It's like, it is one facet of about, I can name 100 others that are a part of what I do. And that's the one that's in the backseat driving and I got to deal with every now and again. Like it just is what it is. Sometimes you will eventually conquer it if you start figuring out how to keep it in the backseat and put a bubble around it. Be like, look, it's not feeding me information that is either accurate or true to what I'm going through right now, or this is like patterns that are just being shouted at me right now. Mm-hmm. It's literally like the LaCroix of opinions and feelings on the way you should behave. It's like, oh, okay, that sounds like a lot of really good, useful information for somebody who didn't have the exact life that I did. Yeah. So instead of sitting here and having this pity party, I gotta look at it like, okay, what can I do moving forward? What are my actions? I just feel really bad. Like this thing with my friend that passed away. We weren't even super, super close. We just had a lot of very similar characteristics. He was a really brilliant person, very, very smart. And, I called my mom after I was leaving the funeral and I'm bawling on the drive home. And I'm like, I just feel like it's always really, not always, but a lot of really smart people kill themselves because they're so smart that you can think yourself into a fucking box. And the reality is that box is just something you thought yourself into, because a large portion of what we can do to just kind of get away from the things that we immediately face is by, like you said, removing yourself from the equation, take a step back, go for a walk. Like meditation is a thing for a reason, just stopping and breathing and being mindful, just giving yourself space in your day to kind of reflect is super, super important. And I feel like it's hard in a hustle and bustle creative world culture like we find ourselves in to really give ourselves the grace to do that. But it is this necessary thing in life that you have to kind of figure out a way to mix into it doesn't, there's Zen in all kinds of things. There's Zen in the art of archery. There's Zen in the art of motorcycle maintenance. Like whatever it is that is your Zen, you got to be able to find a way to get to that place and spend time in these mindful places so that you can gain, and not just gain, but solidify the perspective that gives you the grounding, force of nature to say like, hey, things are not great right now. They're not going to be great for maybe a while. Whatever your circumstances are, but I can weather this storm. I've weathered every other storm. And sometimes that weathering that storm just looks like, hey, all I did was get up, brush my teeth, grab something to eat, and then go back and lay down. It's like, okay, you're still here.
And the crazy thing is that now, because I've been so open about my PTSD and my borderline personality disorder, I feel like I've been able to help the other creatives who are dealing with this stuff silently.
Yeah.
Like there have been times on sets where my sound guy will pull me aside and just open up to me and start crying because of something that he's dealing with, but he feels more comfortable with me because of me being open about it. And that's how I want everyone to approach me,
Yeah.
You can always tell me what's going on, and I will always be there to help.
Yeah, I think it's important to note on that though, that like you can't save other people from drowning if you're drowning.
True. I'm not trying to save them. I'm trying to give them a shoulder to cry on.
Right, for sure. And so I think like if you know you've got the capacity to pull that off and not have it, throttle you or hurt you, because like sometimes you gotta, like, we have to be able to take care of the self vessel first. So and I think a lot of people want to help other people, and sometimes they do it, like I said, you do it at the cost of yourself. Mm-hmm. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's obviously super altruistic, but I also like to think of this like thought exercise of like, what if I had the potential to save 1 million people if I just kept myself alive until year 10? And I don't know why. I don't know what any of it is between A and to Z, but I know if I make it to Z, 100, what did I say? 100 million people, 100 million people now, 100 million people survive. Then it's like, okay, then it kind of makes all this other shit in between here not have the same stakes as that. And the reality is, I'm going to be, whether or not that happens, I will still be going through all these ups and downs and these, successes and failures and stuff along the way. You just have to be able to be humble in the face of the universe that is not opposed to,
look at that, full circle,
kicking you into the ground if it needs to.
You just got to be humble.
Yeah.
Don't disappear, but be humble.
Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with it, man. Like it is hard to like, not even in the bragging sense, right? But like it's hard to be like, hey, I don't know nearly as much as I think I do. I am feeling a lot of ways, and a lot of those ways I'm feeling because of patterns that I've, developed over my lifetime from my upbringing, my social circle, my this, my that. Like we've all got an upbringing that is going to shift and alter us. It's like you got to figure out your worth. You need to be able to see the forest for the trees and actually be like, hey, I'm in this though. Like I'm here just by the grace of existing. Like I've hit the lottery. Like there's a very good chance that I could have ended up in a napkin or a trash can or something like that. Like, so the fact that I'm here, it's like, okay, that's the blessing. And if you can be happy that this is going on, then everything else kind of feels like icing on the cake.
Yeah. So speaking of icing on the cake, do you have any icing that you're going to be creating within the next couple months for your creative cake?
Yeah, unfortunately, and for my personal cake, like not even the cake that pays me, but the cake that I want to be making. Yeah, I mean, we're in this really interesting and fun phase of creation where the song is done, and I've had these vibes and energies and the things that I feel like aesthetically are going to be a part of this video, and I'm pushing the envelope a little bit with myself with the creative space that we're working in the post-production sense, and I am looking at tapping into more of like the short form, short story, short film. Like, for Spitfire, I want to do like a 30-second intro to the thing that kind of tees up the space. And I don't know what that looks like. I sometimes I think of things very linearly. Like I have to tell a story that leads us to the beginning, and then that has to go to the end, and that's it. That's obviously not the end all be all of all storytelling. There's so many different ways that we could handle this, but I want to find some interesting way to kind of tie this intro 30-second short story into what is kind of baked into the narrative of the video, so that it kind of has like a purpose, and it feels like it belongs there, and why. And so with that, so, I mean, when you're really too close to the subject material, it's really difficult to kind of create. Yeah. I've been able to give myself some distance while I've been working on other songs. So now I'm fresh eyes. I'm coming back with like fresh eyes to kind of do that. So I'm really excited about that. Really excited to play some shows over the fall and, stretch my wings and fly a little bit.
It's super cool to see Relic Hearts continue growing and expanding and elevating kind of like your creative endeavors with what you're trying to do with your projects. So.
And I'm trying to do it to the network of people that are around me too. Yeah. Like I know a lot of musicians that like, I think they look at videos as like task, this thing that they have to do. But I'm like, this is the visual representation of the way you feel about this music that you say you give a shit about. Mm-hmm. If you haven't thought about that yet, that's okay. You can find people that can help you figure out what your vision for that might look like. And also at the end of the day, that's not the last song you're going to write. It's not like you're hanging up your songwriting after that. So quit getting so hung up on it that you don't do anything. Like, you can't do that. And I did that for years, like a lot of people do. I'm just excited. I'm like, I believe in a lot of the potential of the other artists that I know are in this area. And, another reason why a film or a media production house coming together makes the most sense, right? Like I look at it like that is what bands need. That's what this person who does whatever that shit is where they lyra hoop and like the ribbons and they spin and shit like that. Cool. Why don't we have a cool place where we can like have people that practice that stuff? Cause like, I bet there are some filmmakers that would love to, film that kind of stuff in high resolution, high shutter speed, high frame rate so they can slow it down and see like really interesting things. We need that space. And I don't know what it's going to take for us to get there, but I think it comes in the form of, about 52 people that are all basically doing the same thing and scattered remnants around the area coming together and being like, hey, we can actually make this a thing and make this something that's possible and create and not in like a, if you build it, they will come type scenario, but in they're already here. So please fucking build it. Yeah. Like we've got a lot of filmmakers that need it. Like we need a studio warehouse.
I will take the Axeman spot, Titan Energy Park. If anyone out there knows,
did you look at that spot?
Oh my God. It is
that
so
80,000 square foot.
I want it so bad.
Yeah, and I think so I thought about going in and saying like, okay, if we could, I went in with.
I want to partner with someone and just do it. Like literally.
I will talk to Angel and Jason at the Happy Valley Song Lab because we were looking together at getting into this, and the first thing I thought of is like, okay, if we did a multi-year lease for 5 years or whatever, could we get a lower rate on the per square foot of this 80,000 square foot facility and turn it into an event center? Like a modular media and entertainment center.
That's exactly how I was thinking about it.
It's a beautiful place. It'd be great for a wedding venue. It would be great for like
there's so many different avenues.
But the space is media warehouse savvy and ready. You have to compartmentalize. You have to figure out how you want to lay it out.
But
there'd be some of the building,
the foundations there, the structures for lighting it's all there.
Yep.
And it even has.
That's so funny. We looked at the same.
Yeah.
Place.
Did you see the? Did you see the side with the gate that could open? Because I'm like, we could bring trucks and cars in here, dude.
I was like, that would be a great place. The loading dock. I would just make like a venue. I would make like a venue back there, and I would have like, you could turn the stage around, and now we're facing this way, and you can do one of these like outdoor shows in the summer. Okay, it's cold. We're gonna shut that.
Cold, raining, come inside.
Drape the curtains, and then we'll you have like there's some installs. There's some stuff that would have to go into it, but. I've been in venues that are way smaller and way worse and not enjoyed them at all. And this is a place that the meat and bones are there. Like I saw the area that I thought this would be the green room. And like I walked around and had this entire like map laid out for it. And, it just comes down to getting people to. What's funny is that it's like all the creatives in this area, it's like a no fucking brainer. They're like, we need this place. If we had this place, people would come from afar to come here. There's a place in Lidditz, Pennsylvania next to, it's kind of like a Hard Rock Cafe style hotel. And it's right next to an amphitheater where they don't even play shows there. The amphitheater is specifically for stage and dress rehearsals for like massive tours. Beyonce, boom, goes there. You can sit there for like a week or two and work through your lighting design and your tour production for the whole tour. And
that's smart. That's super smart.
And they just have this hotel that's basically like industry they go there and do that, and they stay in this hotel next door. And so it's like self-feeding into paying for itself. And also like, it's very clear that if it exists, people will come. We're right off of Interstate 80, right off of I-99. Like there are all these ways where people can get here. And as this area continues to build, the classic case of, State College, Pennsylvania being 10 years behind the decade of, the times and where we are and what we need. We'll have all of this shit when everybody else is like, already in space and they're doing their films up there where there's like a, it feels like you just can't win, but case in point, you got to keep going.
Yeah.
And I think that, you're right. I think that we figure out this team of like, 10 to 15 people we put on a board and say like, this is what we're going to do.
Because the best thing about that location is while we build it out to be a media space, it's kind of already ready to be kind of
media
shootable.
Space. Yeah, I can shoot in it.
It's
done.
Even the way that it is right now, it's already ready to like just do things inside of it.
Yep.
It's insane.
And if you had an event center there and you were doing like wedding receptions and things like that.
Wedding receptions.
You got catering and all kinds of stuff from the
trade shows just for the time being to get some revenue.
Yeah.
Rental space. It's like there's so many different avenues that we haven't actually tried yet in terms of creating spaces for creatives in this area, unless you're talking Penn State. But then you need to be a student to utilize any of those locations. Innovation Park, the Willard Complex. And those are the only 2 green screens, the only 2 white sites, the only 2 black sites.
Outside of everyone I've ever built in the area that I've needed to facilitate some project I've needed to do. Yeah, I mean, dude, you're not wrong. And the problem is, like, I don't know. It's just a bunch of old white dudes and white women clutching their pearls at the idea that they might have, like, I don't know what they're afraid of fostering. We just got out of Arts Fest weekend. So clearly, if we're supporting the arts, there's a whole lot more than like craft arts out there. Like, and I saw a lot of great art. This is like probably the best Arts Fest I've seen in years.
The best. I'm telling you, as someone who works at the visitor center, it was the best weekend that we've had in a while.
So, and that's great. We've got the State Theater, and then there's like that the theater that's right on Allen. Then there's but like outside of these places that seem like it's a cool kid club. If you don't know how to get into it, you can't use it for anything. So, and how much of that is largely sitting unused? And if it's not being unused, it's set up for a production that is like going to sit there for however long. And then what kind of numbers are they doing? 3 Dots just got approved for like, it was like a $20,000 grant. And I'm like, that's great. But there are things that they could be doing too. Like they're not doing certain things that they should be doing that helps create these things. And I'm not trying to tell anybody how to do what they are doing or how they should be doing it better. I just happen to think I could. But I couldn't do all of it, and I'm not claiming that I could. But the reality is there's this one, we've got people here that go to school that have like over 1 million TikTok followers.
Yeah.
These are creatives that have like serious social outreach, and we can't capitalize on them at all because we just don't have the place. There's not anybody that's got the ability to invest in, we see alumni that leave and come back. Like, how many film alumni have left here that have made good money that would want to donate to seeing a place that was available for students? Like, it's got to be accessible, but managed in a way where it's like, it's probably going to have to be a multi-floor thing.
Yeah. You know what? That is crazy that you bring that up, because Modern Family, Ty Burrell, was definitely a Penn State alum.
Yeah.
And even in the height of Modern Family, I don't think they ever brought him back to like capitalize on that.
Right. So Keegan-Michael Key got his master's here.
Only works with the football department.
Right. What is that all about? You're like, bro,
I understand you look like
Keegan.
Franklin,
Like, what is
come
happening
on.
right now? Like,
help a brother out.
It's ridiculous. Yeah.
So I see what you mean. And I mean, I'm trying to, and I think that's what I've been doing the last year, is working with different venues so that we can create kind of a library of locations of people who are very open to working with filmmakers and renting out their spaces. So that way we can make a catalog for us to push towards the film commission. Be like, look at all these spaces that are eager and ready and willing to work with film productions, especially in our lulls, the beginning of June to like the middle of August. There are like very big dead spots in between those. I guess now in June, now Iron Man is going to be taking over some of that time. Right. But I mean, that's athletics. I get everybody loves athletics. Right. But I'm talking film here. Right. Let's bring some creative energy into the area. PA Film Commission, if you're listening, which I know you are, because this is a very popular podcast. It's one of the best. And if you don't believe me, check the analytics. No, don't check the analytics. Don't look at that. No, but seriously, we have so many creative people in the area, so many businesses that want to work with creative people, and so many venues that want to work with creative people, that I think it is the right time to kind of utilize this area, Happy Valley, as another point. Because you have Philadelphia, you have Pittsburgh, where somewhere in the middle there, we can create that pipeline from production in Philly to, or even just pre-production in Philly, production in Happy Valley, to post-production in Pittsburgh. Right. Any type of amalgamation of those three things, I think we create a very tight-knit Hollywood in Pennsylvania. Yeah, man, we're not far off. We just need we don't need this, but there are people that have succeeded and raised to a new plateau. Mm-hmm. And if there are any of them out there that have I don't want a handout. I'm not asking for a hand-me-down. I'm just saying there are people that have the capability and the opportunity to be able to invest in this area in a place that really means a lot to them. A lot of how many college communication majors leave here and make
good money and would love to have benefited from something like that. It's like there's an opportunity to invest into the culture here and the space here where you grew up, or maybe you want to come back and work. Like, this is a great place to live for a very good reason. It's basically a small city with very rural feel. Like, you can't ask for anything. It's an ignorantly safe area. And like, to the degree that it actually kind of makes people get like a little soft.
It gives me anxiety sometimes because
Right.
I come from Reading, New York, like Philly, like definitely don't want to leave your car unlocked.
Yeah.
Yeah. And here people are just like, oh yeah, no, leave the keys in the car. Let's go.
Yeah. I can't even say this on air. I'm going to say it on air because this should bite him on the ass. If it hasn't, it should. My brother leaves his wallet in his fucking car all the time. I'm like, bro,
no.
What are you doing? And it's like, anybody could look in there and see that. What are you doing?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I'm like so eager and ready and hungry. I'm so hungry to do what I love doing for the rest of my life as long and as much as I can.
Right.
You know?
And the thing is, the people that run this area, of this area that are a part of like the borough and all the different councils that run everything, they want people to want to live here and do the things that they want to do here.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe this isn't the most like immediately lucrative community, but it yields, I think, ideally the most social reach and potential based off of the type of work that gets completed here.
Yeah.
It's not like it's medical. It's not Lockheed Martin, you know.
That's a good way of putting
it. There's capability to build some real interesting cultural community here that I could easily stand the test of time and be ahead of the curve, as opposed to a bunch of other areas. But it just seems like one of those things where it's like, okay, we just got to keep rowing. And eventually these dots will connect and maybe somebody sees a podcast, maybe somebody, this one, Michael Keegan decides to come in and invest into the infrastructure of that community here so that it can actually thrive, because it will. If it's already here, it just doesn't have a home.
Yeah.
And if it had a home, I mean, there'd be people I would pay a monthly rental fee 100%. To have access to a place where I could do all this and have access to a pool of people in the area that do this kind of creative. And, maybe they're a nonprofit and they have the ability to like sponsor some people that like don't have the money to fund, their membership, but could easily benefit from the facilities and the infrastructure of like, mentors and teachers and new students and like classes and seminars and all kinds of stuff. Like,
see, that's what I'm trying. That is how I'm trying to do it, and I'm working with the tourism bureau here. I've been able to kind of have a seat in some of those areas where I'm at least meeting people from the borough who have a say in some of that stuff. And I get to, meet with people like Three Dots and other creatives in the area who are trying to do big things and just see how all of that is melding together. So that way I can kind of see what is needed in terms of resources.
Right.
And then I take that back to my grantor, try to see what we can get in terms of sponsorship, investments, stuff like that. And then I try to facilitate some of that myself as well. It's not the easiest thing to freaking do. And at the same time, I'm just trying to do it so that way, if something big does happen in this area in terms of production studio and stuff like that, I can at least have a foot in the door to help bring it to fruition,
Yeah, you're in a very critical phase of things where the reconnaissance is the important part. Because right now we got to see, there are a bunch of moving pieces. We need to see how all those moving pieces work individually and where we can start kind of threading the needle to tie some of these things together, because a couple of these ships being tied together starts to form like an armada that we can actually utilize.
Yeah.
And
it's a slow and steady process, like you said earlier today. Yeah. But at the same time, it is a process. And once the process is done, hopefully the goal will be accomplished. Yeah. And that goal is to bring more film into the area. It's to create a space for the creatives that are already in this area to thrive in, as well as to be able to do what we love.
Yeah. I mean, the long-term ramifications of that are going to be media. And I shudder to use the term content, but like, short films and documentaries and all kinds of things that will go out into the world and have, again, like that once it's done and created and it's released, it's out of our hands really how far it can go, because however people perceive it and receive it and are able to interpret it and then pass it forward, where it grows once it's released, we can't possibly understand that. But what we can know is that at the very least, if it's starting here and it's getting done and it's being released here, it's going to grow a community here.
Yeah.
And that community is going to put out some profound art over time. And that profound art has a very lasting impact on society and culture. And, you know, and very specifically, you know, the local community here when it comes to the economy. Like, I would love to see a red carpet that was not embarrassing to drive by. You know, like, it would be good if we could do something that like actually got people excited for it.
Yeah.
And without fostering that culture, you can't do that.
It's just a matter of time. I think with the new breed of people in the area who are very passionate about what they want to be doing.
Yeah.
I think it's just a matter of time.
Well, Pablo, I hope we're here when it happens, because I want to see it happen.
Yeah.
I want to see us get to that point, because I feel like there's a lot we can give back to the community through doing it, and also a lot of ways that we would be able to benefit from completing a lot of the projects that we would love to have, but we don't have that airport hangar. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Let's build one, baby. Let's build one.
Pablo, man, thanks for coming on. I appreciate it.
Always.
This won't be the last time. I'm looking forward to having you on, but when you have some shows that are coming out and some short films and things like that, we can kind of get you into talk and promote them up. For
anybody out there who's interested in knowing more about me, Dark Mind Pro on pretty much all social media. Dead Girl by Rachel Sweeney, produced by Dark Mind Productions in LA, is premiering at the LA Short Film Fest. I believe that's Academy Award qualifying if they win. So definitely show her some love on the Dark Mind Pro page, as well as Floor One Productions. They have just finished their proof of concept for Birds of the Valley, The Last Supper. Once that is up for viewing, I highly encourage everyone to visit the Dark Mind page and take a look at that. darkmindproductions.com. We have a lot of articles on our blog about the strike and about just working together as a film community, different aspects of film and film analysis. So if any of that stuff interests you, highly encourage you to go take a look at it. It's written by people from the Dark Mind community and from myself as well. Anybody who's interested in film, I highly encourage you to reach out. We're always happy to collaborate and help guide people. At the end of the day, your project should be made. Always.
That'll do it, dude. That's the most resounding, solid plug I've ever heard in one take. That was like all in one breath, I feel like.
Well, when you're a performer, no,
yeah, right.
We're always collaborating at all times with the universe.
That is a wrap on another episode of the Collab or Die podcast. I hope you enjoyed listening to it as much as I enjoyed making this episode for you. And now it's time for our favorite part of the show, the part where I beg you to please hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on those notifications so you never miss an episode. And don't be shy. Give us a shout out on social media at Collab or Die podcast on all the cool platforms to share your thoughts, your feedback, and your love. Until next time, Collab or Die, baby.